Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 282. I am Peter and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey.
And also here, not planned, was not scheduled to be here, but fate intervened in the form of a pooch, and Connor with a broken arm is here.
Raise your hand if you were attacked by a dog and broke your arm this week.
Raise
your other arm.
Raise both arms if you weren't.
Yeah.
God damn it. I have been foiled.
Connor, what's it like to relive Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban?
Annoying. It's the worst. It's painful, less painful than I assumed, but god damn, it's annoying.
When did your professor become a werewolf, though?
Soon, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So to the dog that attacked Connor whilst he was walking outside, which knocked him over and broke his arm in two places, I do have an official statement I would like to read from Comics from the Multiverse and Melo TV to said dog. The statement reads as follows. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
So I'm thinking when Connor's like, I got attacked by a dog and broke my arm, I'm thinking it's like a John Wick movie where the dog got his arm. No, the dog knocked him down.
I had like quite a thick jacket on, so I fairly padded from that side of things. No, I was walking on the edge of the pavement. Dog jumped, knocked me down. I fell into the road. I was very lucky there were no cars coming. And I landed. I don't know how I managed to break the elbow, so on the outside of my elbow, and then the inside of my wrist.
Yeah, I mean, both leverage points.
Yeah, but they're on the opposite side. So I get landing on the elbow. That makes sense to me. But the wrist is on the inside.
So you're calcium deficient because you can't drink milk because you'll shit yourself.
Is it possible that you yourself landed on the wrist? Like so the concrete broke the elbow and then your ass broke the wrist.
Yeah.
Possibly, but I don't remember landing like that. I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of how I landed. I just remember.
It's all obliged to get PTSD.
Literally, I remember the owner pulling the dog off, me getting up and thinking, oh, well, that hurt, but oh well.
Oh, the owner was there. I thought it was a rogue dog.
No, it had a lead on, but obviously it the owner had let go as the dog had charged.
So it wasn't a vicious dog. The dog was just saying hi, and you weren't ready for it.
Quite possibly. But also, I was not prepared. I had earphones in. I wasn't looking. I looked around, and about 2 feet away, there was a dog running full sprint at me.
Okay, this is getting funnier. I did not know that the owner was there, and that it was possible the dog was just saying hello. Yeah.
This went from a nightmare scenario with Cujo to Connor just be taken get a comedy of errors.
I didn't think it was that bad at first. I was like, oh well, that hurt. I got up, and the owner was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I thought I was.
The makeshift plastic sling, though, that's the real money.
Oh no, that was a proper fabric.
Oh, it was?
Like from a first aid kit, yeah.
Oh, it looked like a plastic, you just took
the way
back from work.
Yeah, no, it was a proper fabric strip from a first aid kit at work. But basically, I was significantly closer to work than I was to home by the time this happened. I was like, all right, well, I'll carry on, get to work. I'll sit down, see how I am, see if I can work. After 5 minutes, it became pretty clear that no, I'm not going to be able to work. I should probably go home. The managers insisted on bandaging it up in a sling, and they phoned Paige to make sure I went to get it looked at because I was just like, nah, I'll be fine. I'll just sleep it off.
Connor's like, I've been meaning to try a new whiskey. This one's called Forget It All.
I didn't think it was broken.
Jeez.
So then I had to spend an hour on the phones trying to get an appointment at a hospital because I didn't want to go and sit in A&E for a long time. Especially as right now with COVID, they make you sit in your car and not in the waiting room. And I do not have a car, and it is December. Cold.
So it'd be just standing in the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, this keeps getting funnier and funnier. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if like some crack journalist like uncovers a photograph of the dog in question, and it's like a 1 foot tall like little poodle or something like that, just to add insult to injury.
No, it was like a large staffy, so like a pretty chunky, heavy dog that has some force on it.
Yes. Okay.
The current part, no, because again, when he said you were attacked by a dog, my brain goes to, oh, grabbed his arm and shook, and that's how it broke.
Well, it was trying to get on my arm, but the owner pulled like the other arm, obviously that was up, not on the floor.
Right.
But the owner was like pulling it off pretty quick.
Man.
As Connor walked away, the owner bent down and patted the dog and goes, "Goodbye, goodbye."
It's very frustrating because I don't know when I can go back to work. I've got to wait another week before I can get it looked at again by the fracture specialists.
Right. Well, at least you didn't have to get a rabies shot or any kind of thing like that. You know, because it wasn't a wild dog.
No, that's true.
We'd have to have a fundraiser to try and find a cure for rabies.
Whole fun run and everything.
Yeah, but I don't know how long we'll be off work for. So I've got to wait over a week to get it looked at to see if it needs to go in a cast or anything like that.
You figure at your job, there could be jobs that you can work that don't have a.
In theory, yes, but I only work in the kitchen, so it makes it a lot more complicated. And
man, they fought wars with one-armed chefs. You'll be fine.
It's whether or not they'll let me, though.
No, I know.
Because, annoying.
Well, believe it or not, this is a DC Comics podcast. We talk about comics every week. We read our DC Comics and we talk about it. But we had to address Connor's broken arm at the top of this show. There was no way that was not going to be the first topic of conversation.
No, but the elbow, though. How do you break the elbow?
It does mean, though, that Connor's going to be on the show, like guaranteed for like at least the next few weeks. So
who'd we piss off in hell?
So yes, so look forward to that, I suppose. But yes, so coming up on this week's show, we actually have quite a mighty list. Me and Matt had a fairly light show last week, relatively speaking.
Oh, I couldn't have been on that one, could I?
No. So this week we have Justice League Incarnate issue 1, Batman Fear State Omega issue 1, Detective Comics Annual 2021 issue 1. We have Action Comics 1037, Wonder Woman Annual 2021 issue 1, Nightwing Annual 2021 issue. I'm going to stop saying issue 1 for these annuals, alright? 2021's enough.
just the annual, because
I think that's why they renamed them, because so you don't have to say annual number, whatever.
Yes.
It's just the year. That's it.
So Robin Annual 2021, Batman the Detective issue 6, Wonder Girl issue 5, Human Target issue 2. Connor was determined to read Wonder Woman Historia the Amazons issue 1, so he's here to talk about that.
Did Matt read that?
No, but I did read Justice League Dark Annual 2021.
Oh, you do? I need to add that in. Oh,
maybe,
great.
Maybe that's what the hot take was.
Oh, there we go.
Maybe it was Wonder Woman Historia.
There we go. That's better.
No. I wish I would have read Wonder Woman Historia or the Wonder Woman Annual over something else that I read, but we'll get there.
Oh, something else? Oh, there's another thing he's going to talk about.
Just like that, was it a Ram V issue still?
It was Ram V and Dan Waters, which I'm surprised.
Okay, so that should not be the hot take book.
I'm not going to give anything away, but it literally could be any of the books we've mentioned.
Well, yes, that is kind of how it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the audience, before we started, Matt revealed that he didn't enjoy one of the books and he wasted his time and should have read something else instead, but didn't tell us which one.
Yeah.
And we can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Well, there's one that I kind of think it could be based on how I felt, but like I don't know if he'd be that strong on it. But anyway,
I'll tell you that it's not Human Target. Not that much.
Well, I'm not surprised at that because I know what you thought of issue 1, so I'd be shocked if issue 2 was as much of a departure that you were that upset about it. So that was almost the whole list. But Connor's did a Patreon book as well. He picked a hell of a week to add a Patreon book. I should have done a Patreon book this week, and I said no, I'll do Animal Man next week because I read 10 books and half of them were goddamn annuals or equivalent size. So hefty week.
I admit it was a bad week, but I owe like 4 issues, so I kind of needed to.
Well, Connor's terrible. Everyone could just agree on that.
I'm not gonna argue.
Send doggy treats to the address at the bottom of your screen to the dog who injured him.
Yeah, boy.
So yes, so that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 total books that will be discussed in some capacity on this show.
We're gonna get through some of them quicker, I'm sure.
I should have made a coffee, shouldn't I?
Every time Matt says that, it completely backfires. Like he's almost jinxing it by saying that.
No, because I mean, there's the thing with annual stories though, is like a lot of them are kind of these standalone type things, and like just to tip my hand, like I love the Robin book. I don't have a lot to say about the annual, so you know.
Oh, is that the hot take book?
Just because you don't know doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to say about it.
No, but when I'm not dragging us down on, well, then it goes by quicker.
So you're admitting that there's a good percentage of each conversation that's your fault.
Oh, dude, 100%. So yeah, so that's what I said. When I'm not adding into things, it goes by quicker. So
I know what you meant when you said 100%, but it almost sounded like you were implying that you were 100% of the conversation and me and Connor contribute 0.
Yes,
that is 100% of the fault.
That's my narcissism peeking through.
So yeah, big week for books. So buckle in, everyone, but don't worry, because there's still time for everyone's favorite segment before we get started on the books.
It's Batman.
I'm gonna say X-Men, just based off of the last couple weeks of gone.
It's Batman and X-Men.
Well, number 1 on ComiXology Top 10, which is the segment we're doing. If you let me introduce what the actual segment is before start yelling guesses at me. Yes, number 1 is the Batman Annual, which is funny because funny.
A shame.
I know, because we didn't read this, and the reason why we didn't read this is because this is actually a Ghostmaker story. It's the conclusion to the Ghostmaker backup that was in the Batman book. So it was actually an easy skip for us, which is good because it was such a busy week that it was nice to have one to just be like, oh, well, we can just ignore that.
Having another annual.
I know. So that was number 1, which is just a good example of it says Batman on the title, so it's sold, but I imagine that most people aren't thrilled that it's a Ghostmaker issue.
I mean, I don't know if everyone feels about Ghostmaker like we do, but I feel like...
Oh, I'm sure not, but not to the extent where it's easily the number 1 selling book, though.
I would say in its defense, I would expect it to sell quite well still, because obviously it is continuing backups from the main book. A lot of people will be reading that and just have this on their pull and just continue reading it because it's the final part of that story. They'll get it out of obligation.
How many people get it out of obligation because it's on their pull list automatically, but then never read it?
That's why it went back into my pull list, which I'll get on a slower week. I need all the tied-in Bat books. I have a problem.
I suspect that the actual reading rate or satisfaction rate of this one is probably in the lower side. But hey, that's number 1. Number 2 is X-Men: The Trial of Magneto issue 4. So X-Men was the second book.
We called it X-Men and Batman.
I mean, that's been pretty consistent.
The 90s?
Yeah, that's been pretty consistent for about 30 years now. I mean, that's not like a hot take of a guess.
I think it's been pretty consistent for about a year and a half now, since Hickman reinvented that line.
Right, but
before that, X-Men were not in the top sellers.
No.
But they've been there before. It's not like a shocking development.
There's ebbs and flows with X-Men that's not there with Batman. But Batman's been pretty consistent, like Pete said, the last 30 years. X-Men ebbs and flows depending on like if they're the center of what's going on in Marvel or not. And for a while it was, Avengers that was kind of
pretty
pushing
much all of the 2010s from like AVX onwards.
Yeah,
the Xbox were nowhere to be seen in these tops.
No.
Well, regardless, number 3 is Darth Vader. So Star Wars is unfortunately still.
This is very good.
I'll take your word for it. Number 4 is Nightwing Annual, so that's nice to see that they're ranking fairly well. Number 5 is Volume 3 of Once and Future, which is slightly discounted, but not much. It's not like a proper sale.
I think the sale just ended. It was the first volume was $1, and volumes 2 and 3 were both $2 each.
Yeah, we went over this last week, okay? Yeah, because they infested the top 10 last week. Every time Connor comes back after not being here for a week or two, he starts bringing up things that we already spoke about in the previous weeks.
Well, you're saying it's not that reduced. Like the sale ended yesterday.
that's still.
Yeah.
Right, because we had a very trade-heavy infected top 10 last week between that and Hawkeye, which is still discounted for the record. Although it has went down the charts a bit. But yes, What's the Future Volume 3, number 5. Number 6 is Marauders issue 26, more X-Book stuff. Number 7 is Amazing Spider-Man issue 80. Is that still Spencer doing that up to issue 80?
I think that's maybe the final issue of that. Maybe.
Okay, that's a good run. I mean,
actually, I don't know if they're renumbering or not. It might be the first issue of the new run, where they're doing like the writers' room. It's going weekly.
Oh, they've done that before, yeah, because they did that.
Yeah, like a lot
no,
of
this is Gleason and Wells and Thompson and Ahmed, and it says Ziegler. So
that must have just started then in the last issue or two.
It's weird seeing a story by Pat Gleason, right?
Yeah,
a little bit, I guess. So it is the start of the weekly era then.
Yeah. So
I
expect this every week then, I guess.
Yeah, because they did this before. They did this before Slot.
The Dan Slot.
Yeah, before Slot, there was like a period where it was weekly for a while.
Yeah, that's the last time I read Spider-Man.
Because the trade used to only be 4 or 5 issues each, so you literally got a new trade of Spider-Man like every month. It was like weird. But yeah. Number 8 is Once and Future Volume 2, and number 9 is Volume 1, so they're still just trickling out. Number 10 is Hawkeye Volume 1, which is still $1 for people who wish it. I'll go a bit further though, since trades infected things. Daredevil issue 36 comes in at number 11. Then Hawkeye Volume 2 is there. And then we get to Detective Comics Annual, so that's not too far down the list. And then you've got a mix of more X-Books, more Hawkeye trades.
Interesting thing to me is here, before you haven't even got to it yet, Batman Annual was at the top of this list. Batman Fear State Omega, which finished off that stuff. Where the hell's that?
Oh, give a minute. Action Comics is next.
Yay!
So... yeah, it's not too bad. The grand scheme of things. Also on the front page, although at the lower end of it, you got Batman the Detective, Human Target, and Justice League Incarnate. So not selling amazingly, but if you take out all these trades that were either just on sale or are currently on sale, you get to reasonable-ish numbers.
Probably in that 15 to 20 range.
Yeah. Fear State Omega is in the first row of page 2, so that's let me just quickly work that out. How many is it? 24, 26, so it's 30, number 30 currently.
I wonder if that adds a lot of credence to that theory of, well, Batman Annual is it's people's in their subscriptions, their pull list. It's just automatically included, whereas Fear State Omega you have to actively go and buy.
Yeah. And this is actually more of a relevant final issue than that Ghostmaker Annual is. Yep. So it shows you how much people perhaps on the whole, obviously lots of people still do pay attention and pick the right things and whatever, but it shows you that on a macro level there's a lot of people who aren't paying attention, who maybe don't know that this is the more relevant book versus the annual. The annual is just automatically on their pull box or whatever, and that's it. And it comes back to this is why Batman always outsells Detective Comics. It's because it's called Batman. That's it.
Right.
It's that simple.
And the difference here between 1st and 30th will be thousands, if not tens of thousands, potentially.
Well, when you extrapolate it to like the physical book, sure. I don't know what the difference is in ComiXology, because who knows?
Right.
But yeah, so interesting. Although I did notably beat Justice League Dark Annual and the Wonder Woman Annual, which are just in the next row. So yeah, very very busy week for books. A lot of competition, which is rare for a week 5. Which is what this was. Mm-hmm. Well, it was a week 5 for DC. It was not a week 5 for Marvel, because
Everyone
Wednesday.
Else has their week 5 next month.
Because Wednesday was the first, so so it was weird. There's a weird thing to consider this week, but although notably DC had enough regular books that got delayed to the 5th week that it did not feel like a week. I mean, there was a bunch of annuals, but other than that, it did not feel like a week 5.
Not at all.
So. Yeah, although one annual did get pushed to next week out, because when I was looking ahead, the Superman annual is not till next week, so there is one annual left for us to look at.
What joy.
But cool, there you go. That's ComiXology Top 10. Interesting enough results, I suppose, this week. And there you go. I did not see any news when I looked. I don't know if anyone's got anything. Yeah, no. I'm not surprised, really. Well, without further ado, then, we can start talking about books. So first up on the list this week, Justice League Incarnate issue 1, Joshua Williamson writing with Dennis Culver also writing, and then like 3 artists. My new rule is if there's more than 2 artists, I'm not writing them down because I can't be arsed. That's my rule.
Oh boy.
I think that's fair. I'm not saying we won't mention them, but well, it's just because this is also the timestamps that I'm writing down that appear in the thing. Like, and it just ends up being this big unwieldy amount of text.
So we have Brandon Peterson, Andre Bresson, and Tom Derenick.
Yeah, it's exactly. If Matt wants to fill in when I decide not to write them down, that's okay.
Now I'm gonna have the title page pulled up for each book. So thanks, Pete, for extra work on my part.
Well, not every book.
Pete doesn't respect artists enough.
Just the ones that have more. No, this is me. This is like a low key complaint that there's too many artists, right? This is me saying no. Enough of this.
I don't think there's too many artists when they split it up. It's not like here. There's almost a reason, and I'm fine with multiple artists handled like this.
I will stick up for it a little bit. I think when it's is it Omega? But I think I'll stick up for it a little bit and how they split up the artists. I think here it's a bit less. I mean, I know there's different arts, but to be honest, for the most part,
do you know what I think the problem is here? Because
art styles are very similar.
Yes.
Yes.
If you're going to do different art styles for different Earths, that's a fine idea, but make them distinct. They're still similar enough here that it feels like they're trying to all be roughly the same style.
They're all trying to be house style, basically.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's not. It just kind of feels like the art's subtly changing in a way that's unsatisfying, as opposed to like, oh, I feel like I'm in a different world now.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a thing. We start with the what are they called? The Retaliators from Earth 8.
Basically the Avengers.
Yeah.
They have a character called Big Baby, which I always forget. Who's their Hulk-like, who's just a giant blue. It's like a big baby. It cracks me up.
He's actually his head's. He's got like it's almost like he's got a Sinestro head.
Yeah, not Sinestro. Hector Hammond.
Oh, okay, Hector Hammond. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'd say the haircut's more Sinestro though, which is maybe I think why I thought of him.
For sure.
So, yeah, I did laugh actually when because I had a couple of pages in, you hear them say their version of Avengers Assemble, and it's like
Retaliators Rampage.
Yeah, I was like, that's so shit. I love it.
Well, especially like as this book goes, I can tell that Williamson was having fun with some of the Marvel things, but also you could definitely tell, like, I could feel the super DC nerds going like, yes.
Oh, sure.
This shows how superior we are.
I have no idea. Like, there's a dozen people somewhere who saw the Retaliators and was like, oh my god, the Retaliators are finally getting their time in the sun.
Well, no, I'm talking about more what happens later in the book to the Retaliators.
Oh, sure.
And they're not Thanos.
There's a lot to get into, I think.
The one that is inevitable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, no one can stand in the way of Darkseid when he wants his crack. Okay, so we'll talk about Darkseid wanting crack later on. So we.
Not even once.
I'm just laughing at Matt.
Like Darkseid.
So this is the Earth that Machine Head's from. So this nicely ties it into the previous story. What was that?
Yeah, it feels like a proper sequel.
What was that book called?
Infinite Frontier.
Infinite Frontier. Yeah, that's the one.
The one that this whole current era is named after.
Yes. Shut up. So basically, they're like something's wrong, and Multiverse. Dr. Multiverse, that was the name, shows up with Machine Head's head and is like, yeah, this is what's left of him, something's not right, Multiverse is in upheaval, and big like flash symbol appears in the sky, and was it Tartarus comes out, who's their Thanos.
Let me just say, this is why I love Williamson, because it would be easy to name him something closer, but of course he goes with the T name, but like Thanos being the Greek word for death or similar to it, Tartarus being the prison that held the Titans, like again, there's definitely thought that goes into this Earth 8 Marvel ripoff. That's doesn't feel lazy, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
That went right over Pete's head when he read it.
That's fine.
What?
That
Thanos and Tartarus
with the name.
Oh right. I mean, I was just trying to think of puns with tartar sauce, to be honest, because I thought the name sounded silly. I thought maybe he refers to his his juices as tartar sauce.
No. Tartarus. God, man. How do you read Wonder Woman? You just shut off your brain. Like, you see these words and you're just like, I don't know what that means. It's close to tartar sauce.
I'd just like to say now, I'm quite glad Pete didn't read the Historia.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really? Okay, nice.
That would have been...
And I don't mean that as in, like, you know, you're missing anything, but, like, the way my brain works is like, oh, no, that's a Greek word. This is how it's tied to Greek. And Pete's just like, yep, okay, moving on.
Yeah,
Does not care.
Tartar sauce, man.
Yeah, okay.
Tartar sauce. Anyway, so we cut away at that point, and we go to Avery, and it took me a split second to realize, oh yeah, wait, Williamson's writing this book, so naturally he wants to give his character a spotlight.
Did we change something in this book since it was originally announced? Because from memory, when this was announced, I thought the Flash in this book was going to be Wally.
I don't think so.
I
Am I
remember.
misremembering?
Meant to be Avery, because Avery was a key, not a key piece, but he was hinting towards her in Infinite Frontier.
I don't have a problem with this. I just misremembered.
I don't remember, like, I never remember the solicits for things. Like, books could change their entire premise between solicit and when they came out, and I probably wouldn't notice 90% of the time. So
I'm okay, because this again reminds me of John's, and I know I always say that when it comes to Williamson, but I'm reading Stars and Stripe right now, which was his first DC, and there's a lot of Williamson definitely, you can tell, comes from that school of John's when it comes to delving into character histories. And then
if anyone's got their bingo card out for Comics From The Multiverse, Matt bringing up that Williamson is the new version of Jeff Johns, like, tick that box off now.
Yes, but I'm just saying, like, just wait till you're talking about Jason and
I'm just saying, Matt, I feel like I've heard you make this point like 50 times.
No, I know, but like every time I read, it becomes more apparent. And just like here with Avery, right? I feel like Avery is his star girl. And if he gets a chance to use Avery, especially in this big multiversal type thing where you need a Flash, it makes sense. And I'm happy for that.
I wonder if that's why I'm enjoying Williamson books less now that it goes on. Because I don't think this book's terrible, like, just to get out of the way. But I don't love it. It's fine.
It's exactly the kind of thing that I like.
And that's how I felt a lot about more recent John's books.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's some like the classic John stuff I still love, but I haven't tried rereading so much of that, so maybe it doesn't hold up as well.
We did a piece for the Not So New 52 last week where we ran through them all, and Pete had the same conclusion that you came to about John's.
That's interesting. I did not know.
Well, I was more just that, his work, with the exception of Doomsday Clock, which we all, loved and fawned over. His New 52 work onwards, while there's good stuff in there, it's that none of it compares to his big runs from before that.
What we got is Aquaman, his Justice League, and then
Green Lantern.
The ending of his Green Lantern, I suppose. And then you've got like the Shazam book and Three Jokers. Kind of none of which I really like. A lot of it was okay, but and perfectly readable.
And for someone like me, that when I came up on the John stuff, because of I'm a continuity nerd and how you play with all of these different pieces, and that how everything from DC mythology is in play, I love that kind of storytelling. Like, some people enjoy Morrison's like super out there type stuff. This is just right in my wheelhouse, and I thoroughly enjoy it. But what he's doing here with Avery, and you can track her from her appearance in Flash, right, to now, I really appreciate that.
I'm giggling to myself because we'll get through some of these quickly. So he's the one who set us on this Jeff Johns tangent. No, so
to be fair to him, New Issue 1 was probably not the thing he was thinking of getting.
Probably.
Not at all.
So Avery's dealing with was a replicant, but it quickly turns to Flashpoint Batman and Calvin Superman, who are up in the building, and they're kind of like discussing, and Flashpoint Batman's like, no, this is a terrible. Why aren't we getting one of the more experienced Flashes? He's like, no, she's perfect. Trust me, she's perfect for this. This is the Flash we need. We need a Flash for what we're doing. We should pick Avery.
I love their dynamic. It's very Batman and Superman, right? Like, it's core.
I actually, even though it's not really unknown, I kind of dig that he's introduced as Batman Earth Unknown. Like,
Yeah.
because his Earth doesn't exist anymore, so it's just kind of
Right, it's
like,
gone.
It's unknown in the context of the multiverse.
yeah. So, well, I like that as a little touch.
Mhm.
So, they basically convince her to come and help with almost nothing, to the point where Calvin doesn't even finish his sentence before she runs to the boom tube. And then she's like, wait,
A
what?
boob tube? Yeah, come on.
Wait, what's this about Barry Allen? It's like, oh yeah, Barry's kind of like, lost right now, and we need to kind of save him and stop Darkseid, and the multiverse is sick, and Darkseid's trying to tap into the power of what's beyond the multiverse, and blah 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 blah. So all this stuff, it's actually kind of a decent little recap when they explain it to her, because it's like a nice little summary of the previous book, just in case you've forgotten a lot of the details.
Or you didn't read it.
Or you didn't read it. But
Right.
it sort of reestablished, okay, we got an Aquaman, we got Captain Carrot, we got Thunderer. I'm glad it told me that one, because I would never have known who that asshole was.
Yeah, he's the Thor Superman type.
Yeah. We got Dino Cop. So setting up all these characters again. Mary Marvel's there. Not Earth Zero Mary Marvel, but Mary Marvel of Thunderworld.
I should ask, Dino Cop, is that new? I don't ever remember encountering Dino Cop before.
I don't either. But
Okay.
No. I've encountered a Wolf Cop, a Robocop, a Biocop, but never a Dino
Yeah, I was
Cop.
just wondering if like.
Well, actually, that's not true. It wasn't called Dino Cop, but I mean, come on. Whoopi Goldberg was in a hit film
I knew you were gonna
called
make
Theodore
a hit
Rex.
film. Is it bad that I remember her character's name,
Yes. What was it?
Katie, and she was an android cop?
it wasn't even something like that was a pun or anything. It was
No,
just a
it was-
regular name.
No. I mean, I remember the T-Rex's name was Theodore, but that's because it's the title.
Right.
So I'm not feeling bad about that.
By the way, one of the streaming services is dying me to watch Tammy and the T-Rex, Pete, and I blame you.
Watch our raid cut. It's a hoot. You should watch it.
So I'm just saying.
There's a typo.
Yeah.
There's a typo in the title screen. It's great.
Hmm.
It doesn't come up saying Tammy and the T-Rex. It comes up saying Tanny in the T-Rex.
Oh, that's
amazing.
fantastic.
And they didn't fix it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It keeps recommending it to me, and I'm just like, not now. It's Christmas. Right? Like, beat it.
Oh, that's the only thing stopping you.
Yes.
So yes, they explain the backstory. They explain what's going on to Avery, and that they've got a cosmic treadmill for her to transport them to
Quantum.
a quantum treadmill
Yeah.
to transport them. So they've figured out that the crack in the multiverse is currently on Earth 8, right, which we saw at the start of the issue. So they beam there, and they show up, and there's chaos, there's rubble, like, oh shit, what's happened here? Some of the retaliators are already dying or dead. And
Not Falcon is cradling, not Captain America.
we find out that they actually knew that Machine Head was working with a Psychopirate. They kind of say, no, like, your multiverse has screwed up our Earth so many times that we took a vote and we agreed that he should help. And it's like, okay, that's a little bit interesting. And then, Tartarus is just wrecking fools in the background.
He tore Big Baby in two.
Yep. And then, of course, Darkseid shows up, and we get some Darkseid versus Tartarus action, which led to the image I tweeted earlier today when I read this, because it made me laugh so much. And there's some Darkseid there's some, I am the only one, blah, blah, blah. There's some Doctor Multiverse, when she looks at, like, Calvin, she sees, like, every Superman. That seems to be part of her power set, and that's why they call it Doctor Multiverse, is because she can see every version of you in the multiverse when she looks at you or something like that.
Yeah, interesting too though is the metal version of Superman, which that's different because that's not quite a multiversal Superman, right? So interesting that was thrown in there.
Yeah. But yes, the speech bubble I had to share on Twitter is because they're talking about this crack in the multiverse, and it looks like a big Flash logo that's sort of ripped in the sky, right? So I get it in context, but I got to this bubble and read it, and it just made me laugh, which was, right now we have to stop Darkseid from getting his hands on that crack. So then
Batman is a lead lieutenant in the war on drugs.
So from this point on, every time they said crack, all I could hear was crack cocaine in my head. So, that's what it is. Anyway, so Darkseid Rex, not Thanos, snaps his neck. It's delightful. So I was having fun with the absurdity of some of this stuff.
Notice how not Thanos activated the powers of all the lantern lights.
That's true.
Looks suspiciously like Infinity Gauntlets.
It does, and that's why I can hear the DC people that hate the prevalence of the MCU going like, yes, see, it's superior still. And it's like, it's just a comic. Let's chill. You can like both.
I mean, I did kind of like the idea that his suit's made out of like all the lantern powers, and like that's what he's channeling here. But there's kind of a connection, to the the Infinity Gauntlet and the gems. So Darkseid pisses off because they actually are able to, like, Dr. Multiverse and Avery are able to vibrate or some shit, and it makes the crack go to another universe.
So basically,
sorry, did you say they vibrate the crack?
They vibrate the crack, yes.
Well,
I'm glossing over it because it's just a bunch of nonsense like flash science that we get every so often. Like,
I know.
But I do like how
vibrate the crack made me laugh.
I do like how they're Williamson's building them as this, not a dynamic duo exactly, but they're the two types that needed. Is that like Avery needed to be talked up, right? Dr. Multiverse, who we find out is a lot like Darkseid, to where she's the only one that's in the multiverse. A lot like Darkseid's the only. They're solo beings. That they need these two to work in conjunction to stop whatever is going forward. And I did like that.
Yeah. So the team decided to follow Darkseid through his boom tube because he's trying to follow with the Kraken. The multiverse.
The crack.
I keep wanting to say a crack in time because there's a Ratchet and Clank game called A Crack in Time.
Good game.
But it's not exactly what this is, obviously.
And wasn't it a Rift in Time?
That was A Crack in Time.
What was Rift? Rift Apart.
Yeah, you're thinking of Rift Apart. Yeah, different game.
Yeah.
In Time. I've never heard of this. Now I must know. It's for PS3. So wow. Can I keep on?
I'm shocked at Matt being so interested in googling a Ratchet and Clank game. So the others back at the base are then confronted with a surprise appearance of Orion, who's like, "Yes, I'm coming after Darkseid."
And his dog that looks like the one that attacked Connor.
yeah, that was it. It was that dog.
Yes. It's the new god's fault, is it?
Yeah.
So, yes, he's like, we have to make the multiverse bleed to beat Darkseid.
What does that mean?
I'm sure we'll find out next issue.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the army of Darkseid is following him here. So we got a big bit of combat coming to the House of Heroes, apparently, next issue, as well as, of course, whatever happens with the main team following Darkseid. I'm going to give this some credit, this issue, in that I was a little bit worried that it was going to get really messy and it was just going to be a lot of things happening. I think it did a pretty good job of always having at least a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor between like the Marvel comparisons and just some of the weird dialogue. Like it seemed to be having fun with what it was doing, and I think it was easy to follow. It made it it reminded me enough of what it needed to remind me of the previous book that it was like, okay, I'm not lost at all. I'm following this quite well. Yeah, it was an easygoing read, I think. Plus, it was fun.
It felt like a Justice League book, whereas Infinite Frontier felt like its own thing. This does feel like a Justice League of the multiverse story.
Yeah.
So, credit.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to spending more time with some of the characters. I wonder if some more of the B squad who are left behind get more time soon or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
See.
And the art's okay. Like we said at the start, though, it's pretty just house stylish.
Messy.
Yeah.
It's messy with the changes as well.
Yeah. I probably like the art at the end the most, whichever artist that happens to be.
I like the Brandon Peterson stuff, which is the Earth 8. I think it fits that. It's almost like Hitch and Ultimates, kind of.
Yeah, I think I agree with the Earth 8 stuff. The stuff at the end, which I think was Tom Derenick, was for me by far my least favorite.
I mean, it's fine. It's just heavy on the inks, and it feels different.
I think the heavy on the inks works really well for Orion. I think Orion looks quite good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, individually, I don't think like we'd be talking about the art if this was all one artist, right? I think it would have just been just fine.
It
I
would
think
have been,
any one of these artists would have been fine.
because sometimes we go in depth on the art. There's a lot to talk about, but sometimes it's a throwaway line at the end of the review. It's like, oh, the art was okay.
Yeah.
Like there's not
and
much to say.
But I almost feel like them splitting it up gave us more to talk about.
It did.
So
It wasn't a positive talking point, though. It was a negative, mildly negative talking point.
Yeah.
So yes, drama, excitement, hurrah! Matt, what are you rating Just League Incarnate issue 1?
7.5.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6. It's fine.
I'll go with a straight 7. I think bad fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they do with this. So neat. Batman Fear State Omega issue 1, James Tynion the fourth with like 4 artists. Again. And I will say, like, I think the separation in this one does work better, although I will say the first time it switched from Federici, who's this first artist, I was like, oh no, he's not in the whole book, like, because I was really liking the art in that first part, and then it switched to, and it does switch back, and I do think that the part they picked for him to do does suit his art, because it's like Scarecrow and Batman talking in the rain, and I think
Moody nighttime.
Yeah, so it works, but like the first time it switched to like another artist, I was like, oh no.
I didn't realize I recognized Federici's art as well as I do, because I didn't look at who the artists were on this book. I opened up the first page, I was like, "Ooh, Federici," and then I actually like flicked back to the cover to check. I was like, "Oh yeah, it is."
As an Ivy fan, I'm upset that the Ivy stuff was done by March.
Yeah.
I could just hear the desperation in the voice as he said that. So I actually really like the concept of how this book like is bookended, or like what the framing device is, which is, so it's Scarecrow's being transported by the police, and he does try to escape early on, but Batman's like waiting for it. He knows it's happening, so it becomes Batman personally escorts Scarecrow to his new place at the Arkham Tower, like in the Batmobile, and they basically debate like is this good that like Fear State failed? Is it bad that Fear State failed? Obviously, it's Scarecrow who's arguing it's bad that it failed, but it is basically it offers a device for Batman to say how a lot of these like especially the new characters that might not get used again by other writers, like, so here's like how where Clown Hunter is, here's where Mariko Molly is now, and we get like a little epilogue to all these various characters and what's
it
happening.
felt like Miracle Molly they left in a place where she could be left for a while,
or they could break into Blackgate and get her out.
It's possible. Clown Hunter felt like the one most likely to get reused, because it was Clown Hunter and Ghostmaker, right? Or
they go off into the sunset for me never to see either again.
Yeah, well, I actually don't mind Clown Hunter, but like I'm okay with Clown Hunter and Ghostmaker disappearing.
I'm not like thrilled about the idea of seeing lots of Ghostmaker, but I feel like those two as a pairing that were already paired it together are the most likely for another writer to bring back when they need some backup in the family. Because
I am definitely okay with never like reading a Ghostmaker book. I'm happy with that. But this Federici art at the start is gorgeous. Like just the panels of like the van in the rain just looks really nice. There's just so much mood. I really like the discussion. See the guards at the front of the who are driving the truck. I really like the discussion of like, oh, it's weird like driving around one of these big bads, and the other guy's like, is Scarecrow, does he count as one of the big bads? And the other guy's like, he does now. And I'm like, I kind of like this. I like this progression. And it kind of like came back again later when Batman brings up that there's a lot of villains who have actually kind of like turned, like, between Clayface, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn. Like there's a lot of villains who have kind of worked through their shit and came out on the other side. And this idea that like Scarecrow is not that, he's never going to be that. I like the Batman referencing that. I really like that. Like, because we've talked about it. We've talked about how there's a lot of villains now who have flipped. So I like that in universe the characters are acknowledging it and saying, "Hey, this has happened."
Right.
And it's not just that. I think it's more the idea that the scale of his plan this time, the fact that he got so far into it as well, like it almost succeeded.
To me, he doesn't want to. Right. All the ones that have flipped, there's that sense of tragedy. I don't feel tragedy with Jonathan Crane.
Oh no, right? he's too arrogant. He thinks he's right.
Yeah, and so he's like, yeah, you throw it at me this time, but next time you better hope I don't get out. And I like that because you need that with as many as we just talked about flipping.
Yeah.
I like the idea that with him, he's always going to try to one up himself now, versus like Ivy, where she is a wild card. if she plotted to destroy Gotham for whatever reason, it would be fine. As her teaming up with Harley and Catwoman would be just as fine.
Yeah,
right?
And I think obviously, as what Carter just said there, it's the scale of what he just pulled off is bigger, and it's on the level of something that Joker might do, and that's kind of like elevated him in a way. Scarecrow's always felt like he's on the cusp of being one of the main Bat villains, but he's always felt like the upper of the B tier rather than one of the A tier guys. And I think that he's always had that potential, so it's nice that a story's finally sort of treated him like that. Well, not it sticks, and they keep this momentum going with the character next time he's in a featured in a major story. We'll see. It just kind of depends.
I like Tynion's voice for him here too, just because you like Pete brought up the arrogance that's there, and it's still, even though he was beat, he's still talking shit to Batman.
And there's the he's got like the Hannibal Lecter mask on, so he says quid pro quo at one point. So there's an intentional reference to Silence of the Lambs.
Which I would like to see them work that mask into the next Scarecrow look. So that's another thing I like that Tynion's done, was that Scarecrow's one of those types that you can play with the look every time.
He's given him back the hat, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a bunch of Scarecrow goons try to break him out of the van. Batman's there to thwart it, as you expect. Nice the entrance for Batman. He's like, no, I'm going to take you directly myself, and that's when they start talking about the other characters. So Mariko Molly is doing some time in exchange for the rest of the team not having to like be punished.
Yeah.
And is like sort of turned over all the information about who what the magistrate tried to make them do, and so on and so on. And the fact that the Insanity Collective are sort of rebuilding and helping with getting the fallen magistrate ship out of the water and all that stuff. It acknowledges another Batman. It also
which again is weird, because we haven't seen this other Batman in this timeline, because that book that was supposed to be in a Fear State tie-in ended up set definitively in the future.
Yep.
Yes. But then we have like Amanda Waller and others are buying up some of the tech that the magistrate had, which it's just that feels like just a nice footnote, just to sort of like, that would probably happen. I don't necessarily think it means we're going to see anything with them using it, but I mean, we might.
But I like the idea of Simon Saint being the sniveling weasel that works for Amanda Waller now.
Oh sure, yeah.
That would be perfect.
We see him in prison briefly, but it kind of sounds like he's going to like get his way out of it, so that he'll be an advisor to Amanda Waller or someone else just to get away with it.
Yeah, they say he'll work off his debt to society under the eye of the U.S. military. So basically, he's going to pop up in the Suicide Squad book.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I'd be willing to put money on it.
Peacekeeper 1 is at large. If anything, this feels like the one thing that might be the most likely to pop up at some point soon, is the idea that this demented Peacekeeper 1's out there wanting to still be a vigilante.
Yeah, it reminded me of Spider-Man 2, the Doc Ock scene, where his blade hand just comes up off the table. Those poor doctors don't know what hit him. Feels proper scary.
He's starting to feel like Terminator-esque.
Yeah, a little bit of that, yeah. Because he's supposed to be dead. Because I think they're actually trying to take the parts off him. Because it's not quite an autopsy, but they're trying to take his weapons off, and he just wakes up and kills them. It's like proper.
I don't think he is meant to be dead, because they say he can't be conscious with that much sedative on him.
Oh, you're right, yeah, okay. Right. But same ideas. Like he's supposed to be like a zombie with what they've given him, and he gets up. Then the Ivy stuff. It's basically just the gardener saying goodbye to Catwoman, saying she's leaving, and she wishes her well. That's
the Ivy was like, you hid away part of me for years. Like you really thought like that was a good idea, and so I do like that. I like that there's that edge to Ivy still.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention it, but I did kind of like that Scarecrow asked. He said he didn't feel right without his mask on, and Batman pulls one of the hoods off of his cronies that try to break him out and gives him that.
Yeah.
I actually love it as well, and as much as I do not like the lettering, with that I've complained about since it popped up in Batman, I really like the fact that they chose that moment to switch from a standard white lettering bubble with some black text to the Scarecrow lettering the moment he has the
this mask is it's basically the one from Batman Begins, right? It's just a sack that he has on here. So it really made me think of when he puts the sack on in that movie, and then immediately you get the voice modulator that's like Scarecrow.
Yeah, and obviously this is just a random set. There is no voice modulator in it. It's just to show that he's Scarecrow now, not Jonathan.
Not Crane. Also, I love that when Batman breaks about to take him in himself, he goes, "Oh, it's you." Because that moment's so good.
Yeah, Clown Hunter doesn't like Batman talking to him like he might become a Robin, and it says, "Yeah, I know that won't work." And then he's like, "Hey, Ghostmaker's different from me," and Ghostmaker's like, "Hey, I'll help you to use swords, just no killing, but I'm better than Batman."
Swords are cool, right?
Yeah, and he's like, "All right, sure, I'll try it."
Yeah, I mean the baseball bat is still a less lethal weapon than a sword, but Ghostmaker, you do you, bud.
Yeah,
he did have the unique bat though.
Yeah.
The bat, yes, of course. So, and that 2-page layout with Batman and Scarecrow driving through the forest, so good.
Federici just kills it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
If they want to give Federici a nice Black Label Batman book to do, I'd be.
It's making me want to reread The Last God, which, so good.
So, he drops him off. We got Meridian Chase, who's now...
Chase Meridian.
Sorry, Chase Meridian, yes.
Which is from...
I mean, I recognize the name. I don't remember.
You don't remember. That is Nicole Kidman's character from Batman Forever, Pete.
I like this less now.
Yeah, I know. This is what I teased. I could not wait for Pete to read. He didn't even realize it.
I was wondering what that tweet was about.
Do you know, I recognized the name and kind of went, oh, that sounds familiar. I'm sure she's popped up before. And then, but I never actually realized that's who that was.
From the best bad Batman movie.
Well, does that mean there's going to be boiling acid in the new Detective Comics arc? Maybe there will be.
But I love when they do this, just because it this could have been any new character, but I like the fact that Tynion decided to make it.
I mean, this is just like...
Did Tynion decide this, or was this Tamaki who kind of picked this character for their detective stuff going forward?
I mean, this is the sort of thing. It could just be a new character, but they figure, hey, we can use that name, and nobody else is going to use it for anything, so why not?
Right. And it's a blank slate, because there's nothing really to do besides the fact she wants Val Kilmer.
They don't have to base anything about her off of that character in that movie. No, she's just a doctor who's going to be working at Arkham Tower. Just
the fact that they're slightly canonizing Batman Forever.
It's an open book.
I think running Arkham Tower as opposed to working at it.
Yeah,
running.
That's vibe I got.
I got head doctor kind of vibes. Like she's the one driving the initiative and all that.
Well, she does say my new hospital. So.
So it ends with this tease. So it's kind of nice for Tynion to end his final issue, capping off with all his epilogue stuff with a tease for this Detective Comics story by showing the tower as he drives off from it. So both this and what we're going to talk about in a minute with Detective Comics both directly lead into what this big story is going to be in tech, which is cool. So I do appreciate that between the backups from previous issues of Detective and then these two issues, it does kind of feel like we've been kind of building up to this Arkham Tower story, and I kind of like that we're really treating it like a big deal.
And it feels like Tech is going to be I know Williamson's doing stuff with Batman, but it does feel like Tech's kind of the back to being not the flagship Batman book, but
it feels like it's the focus for the next couple of months, and then
like it was under Tynion, right? Like King was doing his thing at the same time at Rebirth, and that Tynion Bat book kind of felt like the spine of the Bat universe. That's how I feel going with this now. Almost like Tynion handed the baton to Tamaki here.
This issue definitely transitions to the Detective Comics stuff as opposed to the Williamson Batman stuff that's coming.
I wonder if that's because he was in more communication with Tamaki, knew what was coming up, and was helping seed some of it. Whereas Williamson's this fresh guy who's coming in. Not that he's never. I mean, I'm sure they talk, but
fresh to the Bat.
Yeah. But he's completely fresh to the Bat family, and he's just here to do his own new story.
And Connor can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Tynion's choice to go his own way. Not that it was a long time coming, but it kind of came up suddenly, right?
From what I've gathered from reading his stuff, he's kind of been getting bored with superhero stuff for a while. But basically, it wasn't until Substack threw a shitload of money at him when you can kind of do what you want, that he had the freedom to be like, I can just step away from this now. And I think
Mhm.
that's meant that, yeah, it was pretty sudden in the sense of, well, I'm not going to renew this contract anymore, even though he had
Right.
plans to do so before.
So yeah, so whatever his plans were that they had worked on in the group, it feels like Tamaki is a little bit more into that, and maybe that's why we're getting this weekly story coming up.
Yeah.
You know,
Because we do know he did say a long time ago now, but kind of when he started staying on the book after 100, which was obviously when he was
Mhm.
meant to leave originally, he kind of
Right.
said he had a rough 3-year plan.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that.
Gotham.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
he obviously
And
had ideas in mind back then.
And it is kind of a shame in a way because, like, I do think that his Batman book has been better, like after 100
It's-
than before.
Yeah, it's progressed a lot. I feel like the longer he was writing,
And I
the
liked
better it
it.
was getting.
Yeah, and I liked it before 100. Don't get me wrong, but I think it was the build to Fear State. I think is the best part of his run.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think there was a very clear difference in his mindset, and I'm not throwing him under the bus here, but it's clear that
Yeah.
the issues, 90 something to 100, whatever it was maybe 8 issues or something like that, were, I'm a fill-in. I'm just throwing in some action
Yeah.
issues for
Yeah.
half a year just to keep the book coming out every month. He wasn't putting in like, I'm building a mythos.
Yeah, it was
whereas
almost like
afterwards, he had this 3-year plan. He was like, I'm going to build something, and even if he didn't get all the way to the end of that 3 years, he still was treating it that way for most of it.
I mean, to me, it's a nice story that the guy that started off writing backups with Snyder in Batman during the New 52 got to finally take over the Bat title. And it was almost like he was just taking his chance for as long as he could. And then they were like, hey, do you want to do more? He's like, sure.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
That was one of the issues I got to sign. I only need Capullo to sign that book now, and I've got everyone on the creative team.
I think
Nice.
we would probably all agree that as a run, his Detective Comics is the better run. But I mean, it got to run longer, so I mean, it's an unfair comparison, perhaps.
Well, and it was just, I think, you could tell the passion was there for his tech, just because that was kind of a story that he'd wanted. It was the whole family dynamic there. We always said it felt kind of like an X-book in that way.
Yeah, it was fresh and exciting as well at the start of Rebirth.
With his Batman, like I said, it started off kind of rough, but the longer it went, the more I was enjoying it. And in fact, like Fear State and the build of Fear State is one of my favorite Tynion things that he's done because everything was just handled so well. So, yeah, it's I definitely prefer his tech, but both of them are still really decent.
Yeah. No, I'm very much looking forward to his newsletter next week because he kind of just said, look, once Fear State Omega's out, he can kind of open up a bit more now that he doesn't have to hold anything back.
Mhm.
So he's going to do like a big retrospective on his thoughts on Batman now that he's done, kind of what he wanted from it. I'm really intrigued to see what he actually says about it and the angle that he came at it from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's rate Fear State Omega issue 1 then. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Connor?
I'm going to give it an 8. I think it would have been a 7.5, but the Federici art just knocks it up a point or half a point.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. I think it works really well as an epilogue, and I think it focuses. Obviously, the Catwoman and Ivy are a little bit different, but even then, like that segment's about the gardener, and like most of the other segments are about Ghostmaker, Clown Hunter, Miracle Molly. It's mostly the characters that Tynion made or threw in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, like he gets to actually write a kind of but they're open. They can all show back up. He's left it open for anyone to use them again. But he's given them all a nice kind of like writing off point, and it's just a nice little epilogue to his whole thing.
Yeah,
I want Oracle and good, Connor.
No, I was just saying in his last issue of Batman, I was saying I was a little bit concerned how this Fear State Omega was his epilogue issue, and would it be more dealing with Fear State as opposed to his run as a whole? And I think it did end up being more of an epilogue to his run, and I think it's maybe a shame they titled this the Fear State Omega issue and not put this under the Batman annual, because I think more people.
Yeah,
I think this deserved to be the end of his run for most people who had just Batman on their pull lists. Whereas I think the Ghostmaker story from Batman annual probably should have just been a Ghostmaker one shot.
Well, what's weird is that they've been doing those Secret Files issues that were essentially what Ghostmaker got as well. Just it's called the annual.
Right.
So they could have just called that, and then had this be the annual.
And I think that would have been fairer for more people, because I'm certain there are people who read all of Tynion's run but didn't get this issue because they don't, they don't follow everything.
I don't know. Like I still pull Batman, and this was in my file. You know what I mean?
You have a half decent shop that is capable of making those decisions. Not everyone does. And I'm thinking, especially when we looked at the ComiXology charts, this was what, 30th, whereas the annual was number 1. How many people just have Batman on their subscription list and just read every Tynion Batman issue, but didn't read? They probably didn't read Fear State Alpha either, admittedly, but they probably got enough, and then they're missing out this, which I think is more important than Fear State Alpha, because this is the end of his run as opposed to just the end of that event.
Yeah, plus I dug the I think just the vibe of Batman and Scarecrow kind of like having this discussion, like in the car in the rain as they're going to his new location. I think just a really nice atmosphere. So, cool stuff. So, Detective Comics Annual 2021, Mariko Tamaki and Matthew Rosenberg writing. I assume Rosenberg is scripting and Tamaki was the story, but just a hunch.
Probably.
David Lapham is on the art. So, this is kind of the prologue to this 10-week event the Detective Comics is going to do, and does factor in the tower. You know, Chase is brought up again throughout the issue. So, and I like a lot what this issue does. There's definitely some things and like techniques in here that I'm not a big fan of.
I like the core idea of what Nightwing is trying to teach Bruce. I don't like that Bruce has forgotten this again.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I'm more talking. So I got a little worried at the start because we're doing flashbacks to Bruce with his parents before they died, and I'm like, what are we going to shoehorn into his origin or into his backstory? And I actually was okay with most of it in the sense that it was largely just like an example of seeing his dad work with a patient, but it was a patient who was a killer, and there was this moral question of should he help someone who's been a murderer, right? And like that's obviously the core question that's going to like be part of the theme of the story, and that's cool. And I was fine with that because of course his dad, he saw his dad do his job, right? This is not like that irregular, a sort of something for him to see. When it started hinting that the killer in present day was the son of this guy, I sort of rolled my eyes a little bit and went, "Oh, this is."
It's the moment where young Bruce meets the kid, right? That's the moment where you're like, "Ugh."
That was the moment where I'm like, "Okay, you're doing the thing that I hate. I kind of hate a little bit."
That's how a costume made out of chicken bones is pretty metal.
I do like the costume.
No, I like the costume. Well, that's the thing. All the present day stuff I actually really like for the most part because I think the tone of having this serial killer going after what was it again? Blood donors? Not blood donors. Clinic.
So
people use the clinic.
Yeah, but there's a thing with that even the character's dad was like, the blood is sacred and you can't give it to a blood bank, and there's definitely like belongs in Arkham vibes, like
definitely
going on.
Definitely part of a cult vibes going on.
Yeah, and so I did like that stuff, and that transferring to a son makes sense. I just didn't need, young Bruce and this young meager man to meet when they were kids. Like that was a little bit step too far. Like maybe show him, whatever, if that's what you want to do, because you're telling a story about, like, not the soul of Gotham, but just like this is something that's always been going on in Gotham, right? Like this battle in between, the people like Thomas Wayne and the people he's trying to help, that some people would, say they don't deserve the help or whatever. And that's what makes Thomas and Bruce similar, is that they're going to help no matter what, right? So I like all of that, but just like Pete said, the kid being right there and it just being so spot on, it's just a little bit weird.
Just a bit on the nose, and it's just the obvious thing that I wish they had some restraint with sometimes. But like I like the actual horror vibes, like all the scenes of like the modern day, what they call them again?
The meager man.
The meager man, right? So the modern meager man, like running down with this cloak and these chicken wings that he's like made like down the park, like stalking his victim. Like I love this. I this like, serial killer is on the loose in the park, like trying to kill people. I like that.
Just in case you haven't read this, we should say when we say chicken wings, they are made out of chicken bones, but they are not shaped like chicken wings. They look like angel wings almost.
They look like angel wings, but they're made out of chicken bone, which is probably my favorite part of the issue, is when Nightwing and Bruce are on the roof of this chicken place, and Dick's like, "Oh, so we met here, right? Because of this, that, and Bruce is like, no, I I analyzed the chicken bones, and it tracked to this restaurant because of their proprietary blend. And Dick's just like, yeah, I should have known that you don't love chicken wings.
I love the idea though that Bruce has analyzed the proprietary blends of every chicken place's seasoning in the entire city.
Yeah, and so I just love that. And Dick's just like, of course. What was I thinking? I love that. If that's Rosenberg putting that in there, I do like the voice between them. Like that relationship is spot on.
Yeah. So the next thing is I don't think that I think this character's here in this issue as an example of someone who's clearly disturbed who needs help, right? And they should still help him despite the fact that he is a killer. He's not just someone to toss away and be disregarded. And
This isn't like Joker level that he might get out and do it again. Like this dude actually needs help.
Yeah, well, the point I'm making is that I don't think this character is going to be the core villain of this next 10-issue event. I think he's here as a one-issue kind of like setup of the themes.
I think the Meager Man is a like Connor was saying. There's like kind of culty vibes going on, like
it's possible it's past something bigger that we'll see.
Yeah, that I feel like it's coming out through him.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that we won't see him again. I'm just saying that I don't expect him to be this like central figure that the whole story is going to revolve around by any means.
Oh no, this was more a thematic setup rather than a lead-in direct for the story. I guess I think this is if for whatever reason you're planning on reading Shadows of the Bat in the weekly Detective Comics stuff, but you don't read this issue, I think you'll still be fine.
Yeah, I would suspect so.
This is more a thematic setup rather than these are all the plot threads you need to know.
Yeah, obviously the cult that saves him at one point, and he wakes up and they've all got their torches and like, we are the Gotham's lost son and daughters, and we have fallen through the cracks. And there's like a guy with like a mask and a hood and like a staff. I'm like, we are the forgotten. And I'm like, what is this? Some LARPers? What's going on here? But it's setting up that there's this part of the city and these type of characters that we're going to be dealing with. And there's obviously some investigation stuff that I think we can gloss over well enough. But there's a nice fun sequence where he jumps out the window and Nightwing like dives out after him and tells Bruce not to latch on to him till he says. It's a really nicely paced sequence, I think. And the following and then the following page, well, the close-ups of the actual grappling going around his legs and stuff. It's a nice touch. And I also think thematically it's kind of nice that Dick's trying to say, but we need to change how this is done. We can't just have another Arkham. I like the idea that this represents that Dick's the one diving head first, but he still needs Bruce to be the anchor, and that's just kind of representative of the story as a whole. So that's kind of neat. So yeah, so obviously Chase Meridian shows up, and it's like, yeah, she's going to be taking over the new Arkham Tower, and it sets up that. So.
I also obviously we'll get to it, but I think there's a lot of thematic links between this issue and the Nightwing annual in the role of Robin, and in this case Nightwing being kind of that moral center again here, and reminding Bruce that no, you've got to be better. Essentially, it's probably a core idea of what Robin is. Like when Tim Drake decided that Bruce needed a Robin because Bruce was out of control,
right?
And this is again Dick's filling that void where it's like, hey, you got to remember, you got to help them no matter what, and you've kind of lost sight of that. And I like that from Dick. I just don't like that Bruce has kind of got to learn that lesson again.
Well, I mean, if we can look at it macro, I mean, since losing Alfred, he's been kind of a lost ship.
Sure.
It's only just the last year that he's kind of came back to the family again, and it's felt a bit more. So it kind of works. It's not a bad issue. I like the thematics that it sets up, and I like some of the serial killer stuff and the mood of that. But it does there's a few techniques in here that I'm not super thrilled about. The art is a little bit hit and miss for me. There's definitely moments. I actually, bizarrely enough, I think the flashbacks with young Bruce and his parents all look quite good because they kind of fit the tone they're going for. But I think some of the stuff with Batman and Nightwing, like when they're like hunting the killer, like their faces are a bit off, or
I think the faces in general, specifically the lips, are inconsistent most of the issue.
Yeah, the lips are what was bugging me.
I think that's more just his style. I think the overall tone and vibe, I like throughout.
Like I said, the action sequence where Nightwing jumps out after him, I think that's really well paced, and like the the panels starting to be a bit more like skewed and stuff, and like give you a sense of motion. Like I think all that stuff's really well thought out.
Yeah, I don't know who's on the colors, but the stuff at night when Bruce and Dick are kind of sat up on the tower before they jump off and go into, just before that, he's running through the park, with the like the red and the black on the sky behind them. I think that stuff is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, the stuff in the part with the killer chasing after the guy is actually really good. So yeah, I can see a bit up and down for me.
I don't know. Young Bruce eating the hot dog looked weird as hell.
That's part of the lips, isn't it?
So.
Yeah.
Well, the lips are usually involved in eating, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that stuck it out.
Specifically, that what makes it look weird, especially because it's a close up on the face, and because he's eating, that's like the focal points. That's where your eyes are drawn to as well.
Oh man, okay, that's why I know this name. I was like, why do I know the name? This is the artist from Stray Bullets with Azzarello.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
All right, cool. All right, Matt, what are you giving Detective Comics?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
Car?
Yeah, it's a 7 from me.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, straight 7s. 7 going to 7. So cool. Next up, Action Comics 1037. Philip K. Johnson writing with Miguel Mendonca on the art, and I see Matt rubbing his hands together over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we've been really into Johnson's run. We've been loving the build to Warworld Saga, and we had the big cliffhanger last issue where Mongol, who is, finally showed up, and we were ready for the showdown. Before we actually get to the fight, though, we cut to the United Worlds, right? The United Planets. And we get, I mean, partly it's an explanation as for why they're not showing up to help Superman, but it's actually really well done in that it's one of those things in like storytelling where like one of the bastards at this table is just manipulative enough to talk everyone else out of it. Just enough to be like, no, because if somehow Superman loses, then we don't want to have pissed off Mongol. Like, we don't want to have done that.
It's politics in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really frustrating to read, and in an intentional way. Like, this character is intentionally a frustrating villain.
And if I'm looking right, he's a Durlan, and outside of Chameleon, can't trust a Durlan. They're shapeshifters. They'll always weasel their way through things.
Yeah, there's a line later on at the end when we cut back to him when it looks like Superman has lost. There's a line that he kind of ends his argument with where he says, the best thing for us to do is nothing. And I'm like, well, that's awfully convenient that the best course of action is for us all to just be lazy. Like, because that's awfully convenient, isn't it?
Again, politics in a nutshell with certain people. That's
what I was getting at. Yeah, that's. Yeah,
and understatement of the year where you're saying that looks like Superman is lost, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, we've not got to it yet, so I'm building up to it, right? I have a little bit of a dramatic flair in how I discuss the books, and I like to go through them in order and not just say what the ending was.
I understand, but just that sentence for the people that have read this and know, I couldn't let that hang there.
Just because I've missed the last couple of issues of Action.
Yeah.
Where are you two guys landing on the Superman with the grey temples around the back? How are you feeling about that?
I like it.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I remember digging it, but I just didn't know if that was the general consensus.
After we recorded the last one, someone pointed out that the creature that Mongol's writing is one of the same creatures that attacked Superman at the very beginning of this, where him and John had to seal up that breach, and that's the reason for his power. And I did not put that together. I thought Mongol's riding a space dragon. But it goes to show that Johnson's, his keys to storytelling and whatnot. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, forgive me. Matt is slouching more and more, so I'm having to compensate for it.
Matt, slouching.
Don't sit up now. I've just fixed it, you prick. It's like he's gradually fallen out of the video. It's weird. So
my back hurts. I went too hard at the gym yesterday, and my back hurts. So I keep taking the pressure off more and more.
So we come back, big fight. Obviously, the authorities with Superman. Mongol introduces to all of his like weird cronies last issue, and we get a big fight issue, and we get kind of various moments. We get what do we call her? Enchantress. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
June.
There's a few characters in this where I'm like someone dies later, and I'm not entirely sure I remember who that character's name is, but we'll get to it. So she's fighting the one that has more mystical powers, big green snake and all that. And that's got a fun 2-page layout, but she ends up going really big. Apollo tries to fight the big sort of like horned dude.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude doesn't move. Like Apollo flies right into him, and it's like hitting a brick wall for any regular person. That is, obviously Apollo would just go through a brick wall, but and like this guy just stabs Apollo right through. And obviously Midnighter's pissed at this, so Midnighter like, what are you going to do, Midnighter? Apollo just got stabbed by this dude. Like, what do you want to
you're
achieve?
forgetting is he's Batman, so basically. So he's prepared.
And Manchester Black takes on, because it turns out this big guy is actually just like a puppet who's been controlled by this like alien telepath dude.
Weird looking dude.
Yeah, and Manchester Black comes over to confront him, but this guy's got a lot of defenses to stop telepaths from getting into him, and he's got his mystical little pyramid that's giving him all of his power. And
And if you ever forgot that Manchester Black was used because they weren't allowed to use Constantine, this will remind you that he's basically Constantine.
Yeah, because he might have all these mental defenses to go get the telepath, but nothing to prevent him from getting beat down with a stick.
That's the joke here, is that, well, okay, if I can't use telepathic powers, I'll just do it the old-fashioned way and beat the shit out of you.
I loved it. The most I've ever loved Manchester Black is in this moment where he's like, all right, guess it's time to use the stick.
And this is him being very Constantine as well, where they are relatively interchangeable depending on the writer, and that's terrible thing.
Which is why I relatively don't really care about them in the show.
Yeah, it's basically telepathy versus magic, right? But either way,
the core character is very similar.
Yeah, if this was Constantine and they were like, "Oh, we negated all your magic," he would pick up a rock.
Yeah, just wait until we have Constantine and we have Manchester Black with Willoughby in like a trio team book someday.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah. Three miserable pricks save the world. So
there's a book written just for me.
So Superman, of course, is fighting Mongol. Debated, and Mongol, like, I mean, this is the thing. Like, the dialogue here is what's more interesting in the fight itself, which is like, I really like this moment where Mongol says, "Listen, like, all these people you say you're going to save are all chanting my name. You're here to save them, and they're chanting. No one asked for you to save them." And Superman says, "One did." And I really like that. That was like a moment that, that's one of those like that was kind of chills. I got chills a little bit. All it took was one, and that's it. So really nice. The really big monster that some of them are fighting, who's carrying the baby in the jar.
Oh, so creepy.
I want more of the baby.
Yeah. So who's this kind of speedster chick who dies? I forget her name.
That's Light Ray.
Light Ray. There you go. That was my guess. I mean, I didn't just take the guess, but I didn't want it to sound stupid if it was wrong. So.
Well, no, but she's based off of the Flash from Tangent Comics. So, but I like that they switched the name to Light Ray because it's more of a, can't use the Flash. But yeah, she gets taken out and it affects Superman, which I do like.
Yeah, he gets distracted and he gets stabbed with what looks like a kryptonite sword, right through the chest. And this is after.
Kryptonite spear, but
same difference. It's a blade. It's a knife or stabbing weapon. Okay,
a sword of some kind. But yeah, after
a sword and a spear are not the same.
No, but it's still a pointy, and he ends up on the wrong side of it. Right?
That part I will agree to.
Yeah, but this was after that. Mongol he's monologuing. Mongol, who is that? His father had the war world was operated by different engines. And it would, use the planets that it conquered as fuel, but he's made some changes, and that basically Warworld is being powered by the radiation that is equal to a red sun.
Well, I don't know if it's. I read it more as that just the
effects.
The byproduct is radiation that's like a red sun. Not so much they're using red suns to power.
Right, that's what I mean. It's equivalent of that. That's creating those effects. So not only is Superman already weakened, right, because of the attack, but now he's been lured to a red sun, and now he's been stabbed through with a crypt. Like, this Mongol has covered all his bases,
Yeah.
Like this is very much Bane breaking the bat, where people only remember him breaking Batman's back, and not the lead up that Bane had led him on this goose chase through Gotham for days. That led to him breaking the bat. This was very similar to that for me.
Yeah, so we have this panel where he holds him up on this spear, and like he's all in shadow, and the blood's like running down. Super dark. It's like, oh, it really feels like a death of Superman still. And we know he's not dead because we know he's not going to be dead. But like you could have told me this was a death scene, and I would have believed you.
I mean, I yelled "holy shit" as I was reading it. So, and this plays into John's worry about being from the Legion. You know, from what he had learned.
Yeah.
About.
Mhm.
And you know, so when this politician like says we should do nothing, the rest of them all leave the round table, all basically saying, you know, all being ashamed of that they didn't step in and kind of like being sorry, and it ends with just a close up of the alien smiling a little bit. That, you know,
just a thin little smirk.
Yeah, he got his way. You know, he achieved what he wanted to that day. So
now this is the same guy that in the last issue was upset when he was brought up about the Thelosians, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's more going on with this dude.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know his name yet, so I keep just saying that dude, that alien. But yeah, we know who we're talking about. Yeah, really solid. I mean, it was a very quick read because it was mostly action, but you had these bookends with the political stuff to kind of give it some context in the greater universe. And the idea that Superman's kind of been abandoned by the system that he helped set up. Like, he helped set up the United Planets, and now they're a bunch of bastards who don't come and help him. Is very frustrating. So it has this tragic sense to it, because you know from the start that he's going to fail just now, because to get War Saga and the hints that we've seen of it, whether he's in chains, like, he has to lose here.
It is. It's so fascinating to me as well that Batman has just wrapped up diverting away from the future state stuff that we saw, right? Yeah, it's kind of, all right, that's changed that trajectory. We're not going to head towards that anymore. Whereas, you know, this stuff in Action Superman it's only just getting started on that path.
Yeah, I think it's because, like, unlike Future State, which was for Batman, which was like, oh no, this is a possible future that's decades in the future after all this stuff happens in the near future. Because like this was like the Magistrate's been in power for decades by the time we see all this shit in Future State. Whereas here in Superman, it felt a lot more imminent. You know, it felt like, like what's going to happen with Warworld could really happen at any time in the future. So the fact that it's happening next, you know, obviously the stuff with like the characters on Earth, for example, during those Future State issues, talking about the Superman Museum and that, like, that felt really far in the future. But the stuff with the actual on Warworld and the chains, like that could be next week. Like, you know, it could have been. So, but yeah, it is interesting just to compare like how they're handling like what those two things set up. I guess it comes down to the writers, where Tynion set up something that he's going to like ultimately avert, whereas Johnson's like, no, this is the start of my run, and I'm setting out a mission statement for this is what my saga, and it's literally calling it a saga, is going to be.
Well, and I like how it's playing with everything Bendis has done too. With, I mean, he set up this Mongol, right, in the United Planets, and you know.
Do you have to start like a Matt Bendis counter where he brings up Bendis out of nowhere?
Yeah. Well, not out of nowhere, because like you're talking about, like, this was stuff from Future State that wasn't just like Johnson pulled out of nowhere. It was stuff that was going on in Superman when it took that break for Future State.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah. Yeah, because Connor wouldn't know.
No, of course not. So yeah, but I didn't read the backup. I don't know if anyone did.
I didn't either. I didn't have time.
Yeah, no. I mean, I read this after, because I like smart bit of advice for anyone who's got a lot of books in a week where there's a lot of annuals. Read all the annuals first, because then that back half feels like a breeze to read because they're all shorter.
I try and intersperse them. I do a couple of annuals and then I throw in a shorter one as a little break.
Because I got to like the end of this, that was a quick easy read. I was like, oh, there's a backup, which admittedly I've not really typically been reading these backups in Action anyway, but I thought, oh no, I'm on short books now, I'm not doing a backup. Like, I've moved on from that. So but yeah, Action Comics, unsurprisingly, very good. It was a tragic issue that just you felt the impending doom coming, like they're in over their heads. And certainly when Light Ray died, I was like, yeah, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, this team that he brought with them seemed mostly expendable. Like, I buy DC letting them kill most of these characters off. So
yeah.
So there you go. Matt, what are you giving Action Comics 1037?
9.
No what? You said no to me in German, Matt. Well, you said no to.
So God damn it!
It took Matt.
I like how I just didn't get that at all.
I didn't.
It was the way he just went 9.
9.
Yeah. Fair enough, but Connor, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give it a more reasonable score of an 8.
I'll split the difference and go 8.5. I thought it was very, very good. Very, very good.
So for the record, I want to point out that I thought Pete said "you know what," not "know what." So I thought he was getting ready to agree with me.
No.
So I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Pete, agree with you.
Yeah, weird.
9. Nick's so good. Anyway, so that was actually comics. Wonder Woman Annual 2021. Becky, Cloonan, Mariko, Conrad writing, as is the main book, with Andy MacDonald on the art. And this is setting up future stuff for Wonder Woman and possibly that big crossover thing they're doing next year.
Yeah, at the end it says, can I see more in Trials of the Amazons?
Yeah, that's an actual miniseries that's coming out next year, right? That they've solicited.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's another, like, possibly weekly one.
Really? Oh, I didn't know it was really, but
I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So I kind of dug the way this story was set up as well. This has kind of like a smart way of framing what it's doing as a story, where it starts off with the editor waiting for Diana outside the museum that's got a Wonder Woman, like, or maybe an Amazon display on, maybe more accurate, and this mysterious character comes up in sunglasses. He looks a little bit, he's like, his lips are just discolored enough. He looks a little bit pale and sort of sickly almost.
And it gives us one panel where you can see over the sunglasses because they've come down a little bit, and you can see the eyes look a bit off.
Yeah. Just a bit unhuman, or inhuman, maybe the better phrase. And just like he tries to make small talk with it, and his English isn't that great, so he says a few wrong words here or there, but it's clearly sort of building to something, and it is just going to be nice to him. And it cuts to what Wonder Woman's doing, and we get like a kind of typical Wonder Woman's saving some, hostages at a bank robbery. And
Do you know what it is? This is the Wonder Woman 84 scene.
Pretty much. It's pretty much that. And only critique is that Wonder Woman it seems like she's in a bit of a pissy mood most of this issue. Like not so much out of character that it felt like completely wrong, just like enough where she's just constantly a little bit like, I'm too pissed off to be dealing with like schmucks like you. Like she had that kind of attitude throughout a lot of this to me. But so yeah, we get a Wonder Woman action scene where she's taking on and saving hostages, and it's mostly fun stuff where she's breaking guns in half and using the lasso, all the usual shtick. And she gets to She gets to Etta, is what I'm trying to say, because they had a meeting to go in and look at this display, and it's like, oh shit, Etta's been called into work, so Diana's on her own. What I thought was weird here is that they make a point of Etta saying, oh, don't worry, I wasn't going to go in without you. I waited because, I don't think it's worth seeing without you. And then when Etta goes to work, Diana goes in on her own. I thought that was really weird.
That was a bit weird as well.
It would have been fine if they hadn't had Etta say that, but because she specifically said, no, I won't go in without you, and then Diana does it anyway.
We planned this for so long, I wasn't going to go in without you.
Cut to Diana walking around on her own in the display.
Literally, the bottom of the next page is her going in. Whatever.
So that was a little bit weird.
To be fair, Etta does say to go in and enjoy it.
Okay. It still felt weird though, just because I don't know. It's more like she's expecting her to go. No. I'm waiting for you. Like that's what she wants Diana to say to that.
Yeah.
But instead, oh, okay then. I'll just go in and enjoy it on my own. But this guy follows her in. And she notices that she's been tailed.
The exhibits.
Yeah. And she notices she's been entailed, and we get like a little bit of the tour guide talking about Wonder Woman and sort of cracking some jokes about how she still looks good after all these years and all the rest of it. And she's like, Etta would have had a ball at this. And I was like, it's actually rubbing it in. Etta would have found this was hilarious. She would have loved this.
Yeah,
but she's not here. But eventually this the character comes up and talks to her. Altoum. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm assuming so. It's 2 U's.
Yeah, I thought it was like Altuum, but
Altuum. So 2 U's. So I'd say Toom.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Altum. Just emphasize the sound for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he comes in and starts chit chatting, and it kind of comes out that he does know who Diana is. He knows her people. He knows all this stuff. And the big thing that comes out here is that he claims to be from a civilization that Paradise Island, that Themyscira belonged to, and that they were kicked off for the Amazons, and they have been kind of like living in secret underwater.
Big submarine.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny is that, see, when they were in that big 2-page spread where they're looking at this big painting of like Themyscira, and they're talking about it, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like, where is this thing you're talking about? And it wasn't until the next page where she says, oh, it's a submarine. And I went back and went, wait, oh, it's in the... I was like, oh, I can kind of see the shape. Okay, fair enough. I didn't actually see it like when they were initially talking about it. I was looking for it pretty heavily and didn't realize that this vague shape in the water was what they were talking about. But, you know, fair enough. So... And he basically says that, yeah, like once Diana died, because they knew they couldn't take on like the Themyscirans, the Amazons, with her because she's the best of them and the strongest of them. But when she died, they started making their like all these like thousands of years of them like being like kicked off their island. They finally started making plans to like attack. But then Diana came back, like presumably quite close to when they were going to make their big attack. And so now it's like they're kind of caught up and having to do it anyway. And so yeah, I thought this concept of the like there was a native people there that were kicked off this island was kind of interesting. I don't know how you feel about that conceptually.
No, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't betray anything in terms of the idea of Wonder Woman's history of the Amazons. It plays into the Greek gods were dicks.
Yeah,
because
naturally.
Yeah, that's like the most believable thing that Wonder Woman has ever done. So yeah, no, I'm into it. I'm really intrigued by the idea of this society, this civilization that we're going to be presumably playing it with for this story that's coming up.
Yeah, I think the idea that there is like a wrongdoing did happen here, and that like while maybe just like talking to them and like seeking like, although that said though, I kind of see a lot of the Amazons being like, no, this is Themyscira, you're lying. This is our home.
And I'm really intrigued to see how many of the Amazons know about it. Do any of them know about it? Like obviously I'm sure it'll come out that the gods did do this and obviously they know what they did, but did some of the older Amazons know that they displaced these native people? Or
he even kind of implies one point that Hippolyta might know, like because he says something about Hippolyta like not doing enough with her education. Yeah, I don't know if that's implying that Hippolyta does actually know that this happened and just kind of kept it a secret from her. It's an interesting new thing to add to the mythology, where like they come off as quite villainous, although this guy's got an interesting demeanor. Honestly, the only thing I don't really like so much here is how quickly Wonder Woman just says, well, I guess it's time to fight. And I was like, okay.
This is where it felt like, it's an annual. It needs an action sequence.
Yeah. Because it was actually a really interesting meeting, because it was all framed, like, it teased it with him meeting Etta first, and then we had a bit of Wonder Woman action at the bank. And then it was all about them having this conversation about, and because it's a nice touch as well that they're at this like museum display for Themyscira, and then it's all about like a lie about Themyscira's history. So it's a nice backdrop for this conversation to take place.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is quite nice, and it's just that we have to fight. It was the only thing I didn't really like about it. Ultimately.
Yeah, it's just do we have to really?
Yeah. And it turns out he is pretty strong, and he does he holds his own fighting her until he sets off an explosion to sort of end the fight. But and I do like that full page spread where the explosion goes off. It genuinely feels like some sort of terror attack, like in a city.
It does, and it is the idea of, okay, sure, maybe I can't hurt you right now, but I can hurt them, and you're going to have to go and save them.
Yeah, and it also makes me think, well, what have they got planned for Themyscira? If this is his tactics, if this is how they think, these people, like, so is this what the attacks are going to be like on Themyscira, where they're planting explosives and stuff? Which is a little bit different from, like, because the Amazons, they fight with swords, and they come in with catapults and bows and arrows.
Even so, I think it's more just the idea of it'll be these guerrilla tactics of, like, hit and run, cause chaos and terror.
Yeah, sneaky stuff.
Yeah.
So, and obviously there's a nice panel of like Diana like carrying a survivor from the explosion like on her back out from the flames. Just some nice stuff with that. Then there's a scene at the end with Diana and Etta, who have met for lunch, and they're catching up a little bit. but they both get called away at the same time. But a bit of a joke that, as Wonder Woman and Netta's position, they both get called away all the time.
I was half surprised they didn't reveal they were being called for the same thing.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, okay, I guess we'll try the next time. But they still leave money for all the food they didn't eat because it arrives right after they leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of ends with them flying off. The one thing to note though is that what Diana got was actually a text message from Altum, which is, and she's like, "How'd you get this number?" I was like, "Because we're great." Because we're smart.
I know more than you think.
Yeah. So, and Diana says no matter what, the Amazons are united, no matter what you're saying, and I feel like that's wrong. I feel like that's going to be the point of the story, is that the Amazons are not united on this.
That's the final thing. Is he says, "Are you sure about that, Wonder Woman?" And that, I say some of them will be like, "No, this is our home," whatever, and some of them will be like, "Well, they were the native people first. We have this place." I'm sure there'll be that debate that will come up in this series. And
we know we're heading into something. I mean, this it says to be continued in Trial of the Amazons issue 1, and we know that the crossover thing that's happening is like Amazons versus Amazons. It's like a civil war or whatever. Like, this does feel like a genuine good ethical question to throw in that kind of should divide them potentially.
Yeah.
So, I actually kind of like the reasoning for it. So. All in, I would call this annual kind of a win. There's definitely a couple of we need to have an action scene, so we have to end it with this fight. But it just feels a bit sudden.
It definitely has elements of it's an annual setting stuff up.
Yes,
but it's mostly well written, and what it's setting up, I'm into.
I also appreciate the idea that you give the special longer issue to the first meeting between Wonder Woman and this guy who's going to represent this completely new element in the mythology. Because it makes you feel just a little bit more important. Like, you give it a bit more time to breathe. Like, if this was a regular 20-page comic, maybe we wouldn't have to have the extra action scene, but we also probably would have had less time to really have the dialogue sort of banter back and forth like it did. Which I think makes it feel like a bit more of a meeting of the minds.
It's the sort of thing where I feel like you'd have to have the meeting with Etta in one issue and then the meeting with Diana in the second issue. You'd have to introduce him over a few issues, where I think doing it in an annual, it's smart, it saves time. It's a good use of your oversized issue to kind of get this all set up, established. I do think it makes this, relatively speaking, a fairly important annual to read if you're going to be reading this Trial of the Amazon stuff, as opposed to, say, the Detective Comics one, where we were like, it's good, but it's more of a thematic setup.
Yeah,
I think this is more of a literal setup with threads that you probably do want to read this, and it'll probably include in trades. I'm sure I'm sure the Detective probably will include in the trade as well, but this one has to be included in the trade, I think. And this has to be the start of that trade, I would presume. So, pretty good stuff though. And I was happy I made time for it, because this was kind of the one that was like, if there's one annual gets cut out of the ones that I'm supposed to read, it could have been this one, and I'm glad I read it, because it ended up being one of the more important ones out of the bunch. So Matt, you'll have to find time for it.
I will, and that's why I'm being very silent and keeping myself busy, so I don't get spoiled on a lot of stuff.
It's why I intentionally use your name then to get your attention, because I know you're doing what I do, where you just tune out and listen for your name.
Yep.
Yes. But worth reading, Matt. And
I heard Wonder Woman 84 and got a little bit scared. So.
Not in a bad way. He just compared it to, there's like a similar bank heist scene. That's it.
Gotcha.
So, what are you rating it, Connor?
I think it's 7.5.
Yeah, I'll agree with 7.5. I think if it didn't have that necessary action scene out of nowhere towards the end, where it's like, this fight now. Like, it felt like Wonder Woman's decision to want to fight just felt a bit forced. So, that's probably the biggest problem I have with the issue. But cool. That's Wonder Woman Annual 2021. Nightwing Annual 2021. Tom Taylor writing with Cian, Tormey, and Daniel HDR on art, as opposed to his SDR little brother.
I was waiting for that. This has one of the most stylish first pages of a comic I've read in a while, where it's like, okay, I immediately know what tone you're going for in this book.
Sure, you get the hotel neon sign and the picking up the phone,
Like, okay, you're going for that noir feeling, right, I'm in, I've got it.
So this is a standalone story. It's Nightwing and Red Hood, and it does have some flashbacks to when they've interacted back in the day, maybe even the first time they kind of met, really. So interesting stuff. We start the story with this criminal who's been escorted, which turns out to be the FBI because he's going to be an informant. But what looks like Red Hood shows up, shoots the shit out of the car, murders some of these agents, and then eventually kills the guy that was being escorted. And it sort of does that smart transition where it then transitions to Nightwing and Oracle watching the footage of this.
Mm-hmm.
And Nightwing's like, well, it looks like Red Hood, but anyone could put on that mask. And then at the end of the footage, he pulls off the mask. You see his face. He's like, oh shit.
Also,
okay.
I noticed, continuing the theme of this run, mimicking the vibe of the Fraction Hawkeye run.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, yeah, this looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing that Dick says in this issue, and it's again continuing that vibe of that book.
I haven't noticed that, but you're right. Yeah, this looks bad, Babs. I like the ads on the Babs just to give it a little bit of a DC flair. But so Nightwing's like, okay, I guess I'll sit up. I also love Oracle covering the dog's eyes for the ending with the actual murder. Nice touch.
That was nice touch.
So Nightwing suits up. He's going off to see Jason, and we get our first flashback. And do you know what? Like, Taylor did such a good job of like pulling on the heartstrings with Alfred at the start of this run when he, Dick getting the inheritance and like all that stuff. I think he did a great job in this issue again with this, which is Alfred calls Dick at Titans Tower. This is back in the early New Teen Titans days, and says, "Hey, Jason's having a rough time. Could you come in and he doesn't even tell him about Jason yet. He kind of surprises him with that.
No,
but
he's just like, hey, your presence is requested. And he's like, no, Bruce fired me. He doesn't want me there.
Well, that's the notable part is that he says, "Oh, it's you asking, Alfred. It's not Bruce asking." He's like, "Yes." Yeah. He's like, "Well, I'm on my way then." I love that. I was like, "No, it's not Bruce that's asking. It's you." In that case, yes, I'm on my way. That's really great. And then he kind of like blindsides him and says, "Here's Jason playing video games," and he sort of shuts the door and. He immediately starts talking about, I know what it's like being Robin, and Jason's like, do you know what it's like being compared to you constantly? Like, that's all he does is like how great you were. So they kind of bond a little bit, and Dick's like, okay, let's go out and let's get some training from a Robin rather than a Batman. And I love that Jason says, well, Bruce said that we couldn't go out, and like, what if he finds out? And Dick says, "Hey Alfred, I'm taking Jason out," and he just goes, "Very good, sir."
Yeah.
Not even questioning it.
Yeah,
he's like, "I won't say
hands in
anything
the
if you
keys to the
won't."
Batmobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of this,
paced, very, very Tom Taylor.
Yeah. All the pacing of this, which is basically that Alfred wanted Dick to go and bond with them and take him out, and it's like, yeah, this is all behind Batman's back. Alfred's being the good parent and saying, no, Jason needs this. Go be a big brother. Like
Jason's like, you can't be seriously going to take the Batmobile. And Alfred's like, here's the keys. Could you get some milk on the way back?
It's so good. Like this is like there's a few writers who are doing their damnedest to make me give a shit about Jason, and it's stuff like this where it actually treats like Dick like the big brother and Jason like the little brother. That's a way of like doing it.
Do you know what I hate about this issue?
Yes.
Is it reminds me of how good Dick is as Batman, because that's essentially what this is.
Yeah.
This is more of that Dick Batman vibe with Jason as his Robin instead of Damian, but it's that same idea. And oh man, I miss it. I want more of it.
Oh, and he's in his disco Nightwing suit as well. We should mention that.
He is. Yeah.
Well, also they're in the car, and he's like, "Can I put my feet up?"
He's like, "Well, I'm not going to stop you." But,
he's like, "Well, maybe not with the rocket launcher buttons."
There's a lot of
good idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of buttons that fire weapons. Maybe it's not a good idea to.
Just like again, the pacing of their conversations, and just like it feels. Again, it's very much Taylor has Dick's voice down.
Yeah. I think that's the point. It's not just that the dialogue is like good for as good for being in character, which it is.
Yeah.
But it's also the pacing of it, so it flows so well that the jokes and the reactions play off like so naturally and just fit. And a lot of what happens is when they go and find someone is that Dick tells Robin's meant to be a distraction, but you also have to be the heart. So it's like you don't just go in and like get the victim up. You actually ask if they're okay, because Batman doesn't do that. Batman doesn't get all touchy feely.
Batman's a force of nature.
Yeah. So, and Jason like chases after this mugger and like beats the shit. He just starts beating the shit out of him, and Dick has to stop him. Says that's enough, Jason, and all that. And like, and don't know, Jason, like you can tell us his heart's in the right place, because this guy kidnapped a kid, and he comes up and says, "You want to hit a kid?" And he gets all scared. I love how he goes into almost the Batman silhouette as Robin, where it's just the R and the cape you see with the silhouette. I like that he kind of channels Batman in that moment, and like Dick has to stop him, and the whole point is, no, like you need to be Robin, not Batman. So stop trying to be. And I love at the end of this flashback, you just see Alfred smiling behind the big penny because what he set out to do, his plan worked. Yeah, it's like they're bonding as brothers, and that was the whole point. And I love that this all plays out while Dick's on his way to see Jason in present day, and that when he gets there, he's like, you know what? I still don't believe it was you. I believe that you didn't do this. So we have to figure out why he had your face, and he checks for the wound that he should have had, and he checks to see if he's like a shapeshifter, whatever.
I like as well that the reason that he believes him just like that is because if you killed someone, you don't up to it. You always do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you've never been afraid. You've never been shy about the fact that you've killed people before.
So it's really neat. Honestly, the biggest thing that threw me in this issue, because when they started hinting it was Clayface, I was like, but wait, Basil's a good guy. What's going on? What's going on with this? So I was very relieved when it turned out to be the second Clayface, who I forgot existed.
Preston Payne, which he goes way, way back.
Are we going to brush over the fact that Nightwing pretended to be a crowbar?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I do have to admit, I did pop at the joke. Well, because Red Hood's like, well, yeah, he's a crowbar now. It's kind of like with Batman with the bats. He's like overcoming his fear, and Dick's like, well, you should dress as a crowbar then.
Yeah.
Or make this shape a lot.
This shape,
arms up at an angle.
Well, it's perfectly awkward shit talking that you make to your sibling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's just because when I mean, we never read it, but when Connor was reading Red Hood and he brought up that he's going to run with a crowbar now as his main weapon. We all sort of made fun of it. It was kind of a silly idea. I love that Taylor's found a way to crack some jokes about it, sort of, make fun of it, but still kind of makes it okay that he's still doing it.
It's still kind of the same way that people make fun of the Drake name, right?
Yes,
we all know this is kind of stupid, except this one we're not allowed to change right now.
Yeah. So
yeah,
all good stuff. They go to the old Batcave where everything's like covered up because Bruce has not been there. And they use some testing, figure out where they're going. And they've tracked down this Clayface, and there's some fun stuff with like him melting out of the Red Hood suit and fighting the guys. He tries to turn into Batman to mess with Jason, but it doesn't work.
I do love the way that that's drawn though, with the cape, the tendrils.
With the cape,
Oh man, so good.
Do I think works? What I like about it is that it actually feels a lot like how Batman was drawn more in the 90s and the end of the 80s when Jason's origin happened.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like that Kelly Jones vibe.
Yeah. So, they're fighting Clayface. They end up freezing him in a freezer where it's just his head sticking out, but the rest of him's all frozen. That was funny. So basically he impersonated Red Hood because that's the one that people would believe would be a murderer. People would question it if it was Nightwing or Batman. Like they would know.
No one's going to question Red Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this guy was an informant, and so they had to go and whoever Clayface is working for, and of course has ties to Jason's past a little bit. Yeah,
well, I appreciated because I was a little bit worried that this was going to be like, the person behind his mother's death, but I kind of liked that it was like, no, it was just the first time she OD'd. She survived this and she had more ODs,
Right.
I like that point.
Just a drug dealer, essentially.
The dude's a drug dealer, and he's been, living large, and so the actual FBI is going. So those the guys that they got the footage from were FBI agents.
And I like that keeps it within the realm of this is why the FBI is dealing with this and not other superheroes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was because this drug dealer used a supervillain, it got, Nightwing and Red Hood involved. Yeah, and
I think that because he's trying to leave in a plane at the moment, and they get Oracle to try and delay him as much as possible. And I kind of like that the guy's smart enough to realize that all these delays are just to keep him here. So he's like, no, like take off now. And he holds a gun up to the pilot's head. He's like, no, we're going. And they use the Batmobile to stop the plane, if you will.
You said I could drive, and he wrecks it right into the plane to stop it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
like
obviously they get in and they apprehend him, and Jason chooses not to like murder him, so that's nice.
Yeah.
But like
Just
after,
give him a good whack with the crowbar, though,
he
doesn't he?
hit him with a crowbar.
Yes.
Yeah.
But afterwards, like it's like, well, you know what Batman doesn't know doesn't hurt him. It's like I think he's going to notice the damage to the Batmobile because we drove it into a plane. So yeah, it just ends in a sweet moment. It is a very one and done story, but it like this is going to fit nicely into whatever Nightwing trade it gets tacked on to the end of. You know, it's such a good little one off that's, and I feel like
Just joining those issues of making us come around on Jason.
I know, and I feel like it's continuing the idea of like it's still relevant to the run because so much of what Taylor's been doing is Dick's relationship with all the other Bat family members, which he's been doing between Alfred, Barbara's a main character, and their relationship's like an ongoing thing. His relationship,
a lot of stuff with Tim.
yeah, like he's really delving into what Dick means to everyone around him, and I think that this is why it still fits into the overall run quite happily.
Which
I think we're due a reckoning with Damien, right, at some point in this book.
For sure. Like it wouldn't surprise me if him and Williamson do some sort of Nightwing Robin crossover or something.
Mm-hmm. I'd be okay with that.
Which would tell me by if Nightwing wasn't the star of this book, I would be a little bit worried that Taylor's making us, he's making Dick too relatable and something bad is going to happen. But
I think something bad.
Character.
Yeah.
He's got that Daredevil thing, right? In that, every time something good starts happening, no. Yeah. His life needs to be shit.
What? I mean, I can see them orchestrating a thing where eventually when we get the proper Damien like story that he's going to do with him, that what if for some reason like Batman's like out for the count and for some reason he has to put on a bat suit. Not that he's going to be Batman permanently for any reason, but just as a one issue thing, he's like, hey, for old time's sake, let's go be Batman and Robin.
See it happening with Batman Inc. starting back up.
Yeah,
and he needs to be the Batman of Gotham again for a little bit.
That would seem more not permanent, but like more permanent in the sense that would be like, oh, that's going to last for a year or something like that. Whereas I'm thinking just like a one issue.
I would have thought just like a couple of issues in, probably in the Bat book itself. As okay, Bruce is off somewhere. He needs a Batman of Gotham, so Dick fills in temporarily.
Because I feel like the choice to put on the bat suit, and maybe it's something that isn't really need to do because he can still just be Nightwing. But because he's with Damien, he says, hey, for old time's sake, I'm going to go put the bat suit on and we can go be Batman and Robin because we were the best Batman and Robin, and that's how it is. Delightful as always. I had a fun time. The art by Tormey and HDR. That's mostly pretty good. Didn't blow me away, but like there's a lot of nice, like you said, that opening page is very atmospheric. Some of the action stuff with the Batmobile is good fun.
And another a good example of having two artists because it's very clearly distinct in completely different time periods.
Yeah, it's just a flashback that's the other artist. Yeah, so well divided in that sense, and so very little to complain about. Matt, what are you giving Nightwing Annual?
8.5.
Connor.
8.5.
8.5. Yes, I think we're all agreed on this one. So good stuff. Speaking of Robin Annual 2021, Joshua Williamson writing with Roger Cruz on the art, and this issue is set after issue 6 of the book, and I feel like when this is put in the trade, they'll probably slot it in there.
It takes before 6.
Is it before 6?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way. Well,
it's before the tournament starts.
It's when Damien gets back to the island when he's been off talking to the Bat family, right? Whatever that fits.
Yeah, after Dick gave him the the scrim stick, to remind him of the Robins.
The only way I'm so confident it's before 6 is it's the editor's note on the very first panel.
I'm just opening it now, but like I knew when it took place. It was just a question of like what issue that was, but so it's just after he's seen the Bat family and he's come back, and the idea is that he's got some access to the Bat computer through these sticks, and it's a framing device for him, just sort of like doing some fleshing out of some of the other characters, especially the new ones.
This is basically Robin Secret Files.
Kinda, yeah, and a few of them are
from Secret Origins.
Yeah, a few of them are one-page things, but obviously some of the characters get a bit more time. We spend a bit more time in Flatline and her backstory and her origin. We get a bit more on like why Ravager's here, which ties into the mystery of who Respawn is. So honestly, I think this is a fine little issue that is going to fit really well into the second trade, and it probably should just go where it's set, because when I was reading this, I was like, you know what? I think I would have enjoyed this more if it was actually just when it was set, rather than here awkwardly after the next arc. That we've
If this
pretty
was
much
an
done.
annual that came out 3 months ago,
Yeah.
whatever it was now, I would have enjoyed it more. As it is, I'm like, it's fine. I didn't need this now. I could have skipped this.
I still think
it's fine.
I think it's worthwhile still, though. I still think it's worthwhile because I like getting the backstory of like Flatline, for example.
When I say I could have skipped this, I could have skipped this week.
Sure.
But I don't mean like it's not bad. It's fine. But if I didn't read this, I wouldn't have felt like I'd missed a whole lot.
Oh, is this the one Matt's got the hot take on?
No.
Okay.
I was gonna say, did you guys know Flatline was Russian?
No, that's news to me.
Okay. I had zero indication until we get her origin, which I think is fun. Like,
yeah, I don't think it really mattered before because
but I was just like, okay, we're in Moscow.
I mean,
usually when you have Russian characters, they very distinctly accent them, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, but other than giving her an accent, I mean, what they usually do is they'll say, they'll throw in some Russian words here or there to show you that they're Russian, and say, hey, yeah. So
yeah,
but yeah, you get the flashback where she basically discovers her power when her grandfather dies, and as he dies, she like takes all of his skills, right, and sees kind of what his life was. And it turns out he was this badass assassin dude for the KGB.
She thinks that he was a serial killer because in her processing is just like, oh, he killed a bunch of people, but no, it turns out he was like a KGB weapon. You know, and that the people that want to keep that a secret are going to be coming after, and so. And
a really nice touch to this is that like she kind of hears from him. And it's actually like drawn the exact same way that Damien's hearing Alfred. I thought that was a nice touch in the art. Really smart stuff. So yeah, she ends up like because she's taken his skills and he had the same power where he was like taking all the skills of everyone he killed. He racked up a lot of skills, so she's immediately very good at being a fighter and being like a killer. And she the priest turns out to be undercover and pulls out some machine guns, and she like quickly snaps his neck.
Which all that did was remind me of what was it, Expendables 2 or 3. I now pronounce you man and knife. That's all this reminded me of. So cheesy.
Yeah, it was cheesy. It was fun cheesy though. So yeah, her family kind of disown her, and she runs off and goes to Lord Deathman. But then just kills Lord Deathman to take his power or take his skills. Which
Lord Deathman, it just seems like something out of a Valiant comic rather than anything DC. Not that's necessarily bad.
Which I think is okay because he's a throwaway character to be killed. So yeah, fine.
Well, yeah, I mean he's basically immortal. He comes back. I mean, that's what I like about him. He's very Morrison-y type. I understand why Morrison brought him back in Ink and in his Batman run. But I do like how he basically is only like that because of the Lazarus juice. So them putting that in there, and that's how she ends up on Lazarus Island to go into the tournament.
I'm assuming the Groovy was supposed to be a Evil Dead reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And obviously, like you say, they're bribing him with Lazarus juice. So and then we get, and I was a little worried that it was just going to be these 1-page things after this because you know the next couple we get are just these, and yeah, they are fairly minor characters. You get 1 page for Black Swan, 1 page for XXL, 1 page for the Drenched. I did kind of like that the Drenched is like a half Atlantean, half Trench. So I was like, wait a minute, who had sex with the Trench?
Well, how do we know they didn't? You know, that's how it came to be. You know. We don't know. It's a monster. I like that.
Yeah. Just questions.
I will say
also,
it felt mad scientist-y with the two talking about it. I'm not sure there was any copulation.
Sure, okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Also, I like that. I forget that Double XL's 10 years old. So the fact there's this 10-year-old with titanium laced hand wraps or gloves that I'm sure is deriving power from the hype men. That's such a weird concept. It shouldn't work, but it does. So,
14
but I think that's
kills.
Yeah, like because it's not like we've gotten a ton of Double XL, right? He's been used sparingly, so I do like that.
And then we got the Mystery of Respawn, which turns out to be more the reason why Ravager's here, is that she fights all these ninjas that stole stuff from, you know, what she thinks was Deathstroke, but when she goes to the hideout, it's actually Ravager's old hideout that's been like ransacked.
Her
so
brother Grant.
yeah, so so she basically goes because she wants to figure out who's stolen all of his stuff and like who's set and then there's a couple of pages for Connor Hawke setting up his stuff, where he basically woke up after being like brought back, during whatever.
It's a 2-page recap of who the shit he is.
Yeah.
Just if you've never read anything of him before.
Which is probably good for some people, actually.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
They don't realize.
Yeah.
But also probably should have been a long time ago in the book rather than in random annual after 9 issues.
Yeah, but I like here that it's here that they just give the quick hit version of it. And basically like he got Dr. Manhattan here.
It's funny because like you get to the last page, which is basically after this bit, and Robin like takes out the tech because he doesn't want to be tracked, he doesn't want help, and it says pick up Robin issue 6 on sale now, and I'm like, issue 6 was months ago. Like I feel like you may
good
actually
luck finding that in a store.
Yeah, you have hard time like doing that now, which makes me wonder actually if this was actually meant to be a few months ago, and
I think pushed. So maybe printing,
maybe.
Yeah.
Or like, it feels like maybe they're starting to shift these messages more towards
trades,
digital readers.
Yeah, or your digital. Yeah.
Obviously, no need to worry about then. If you picked up this issue because it was just a new issue this week and you like the look of it.
Yeah. But I do wonder because like last annual month would have been 2 or 3 months ago, and it might have like fit perfectly there. So it makes me think maybe it was meant to be then. And it's not the end of the world.
Feels weird that they held it this long though.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Because they've done that recently where they've just thrown out annuals in random months.
True. It's happening next week, so I mean, that's happen. But yeah, so there's a short epilogue though with Ra's al Ghul, where Talia comes to see him. Not much to it, but
no, but that plays everything in a checkmate. I think that's pretty interesting because that's the Leviathan ship she left with.
Oh, sure.
I thought it was interesting as well. Follow Talia's adventures in the page of Batman, which makes sense. Robin, again, both of Williamson's make sense, and Deathstroke Inc. So all Williamson books, they're going to be very heavily tied together. And don't miss Shadow War coming in 2022. Am I misremembering, or do we know what Shadow War is?
No, I think
there's a vague recollection of it being mentioned. It's obviously a story coming up in one of the books.
Right.
If not these 3 specifically.
It was something I don't remember hearing about Shadow War, and I'm wondering because the way that's bolded in white in the same way that the other text is for the names of the books. Is this a book that has yet to be announced?
It could be like an event that spins through those books because we know Batman's redoing Inc. We know Williamson has this trust organization through Deathstroke Inc. Right, and it seems like they're all going to lay into each other. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a mini. The one that he's doing.
I think with Williamson doing Batman, Robin, and Deathstroke Inc. And then maybe something, this event that'll tie them together. It feels like he's definitely carving out his own corner.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I've not read the last couple issues of Deathstroke Inc., but I enjoyed the first one well enough that I wouldn't be opposed to catching up a little.
The third one, he was riding a unicorn and fighting with a sword. He was fighting a cheetah in a fantasy world.
Yes. It's fantastic.
It was amazing.
Yeah, like it seems like an easy thing to binge a few issues of when I feel like I want to catch up. So I
wish it wasn't Howard Porter on it. I don't really.
Well, I mean, for me, it was just a case of it was out in a week where it was like one book too many, and it was the one that was like, it doesn't feel essential. So yeah.
I like Zend out Ra's al Ghul. I think that's a nice. I don't think I've ever seen that type of Ra's before.
Sure.
So the fact that he had this inner serenity on this island and Natalia shows up to screw it all up. I definitely like that because I feel like not that Ra's needs to be redeemed, but I feel like we always get the Bond villain version of him.
A new take on him.
Yeah, so like this kind of fresher take, and he just had to be like, oh, those days are behind me, and then when Talia fails, it'll.
I like he's still back. Clearly very capable. When they just come up, he's still like grabbing those swords and stab them both with their own swords.
Yeah.
So. All right, what are you giving Robin Annual issue 1, Matt?
I'm giving it an 8.
Connor?
I'm giving it a 6. It's mostly just fine, but I like the epilogue.
I mean, I guess I'm splitting the difference and going 7. I think it's a fine issue. I think it's a perfectly nice addition to like flesh out some of these characters. But I do think it would have been better read where it actually took place between those two issues. And I suspect that when they put the trade out, it's going to be there because I don't. There's nothing about this that feels like, oh, it's like a prequel where you're supposed to have some future knowledge for some context or some whatever. It doesn't feel like that.
But surely that first trade's already out or about to come out.
It wouldn't be in the first trade though. It'd be in the second trade.
Oh, because of the backups. Okay, I forgot about. Was the first trade just 1 to 4, 1 to 5?
Yeah, it was like the backup that set it up, and then like because the tournament didn't start until the second trade, so I think this would go to the start of the second trade before the tournament starts.
Yeah,
I'm just checking. Amazon has volume 1 of Robin being 1 to 6.
I'm pretty sure that's wrong.
But as I say, that it could be wrong because that's Amazon. So
that's just because that's just a standard assumed like 1 to 6 is what you expect in a trade usually.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder if ComiXology has it. I'm gonna go check. You guys can move on to the next book while I do. I'm just intrigued.
Nice. Okay. Coming up. Justice League Dark Annual 2021. Matt just told me about this whilst we started the show, so I have nothing written down for it. So tell us who did it.
So this is Ram V and Dan Waters with. Let me get to the page, to the title page on art.
Eric Clapton.
And of course, it's probably. Huh?
Eric Clapton. Did he do that?
No. Christopher Mitten.
I was close.
Yeah, he did the inks. Yeah. So, this is the one that I wish I didn't read just because of timing. And it's not bad. There's more. The one that I wish I didn't read was because it was bad. I had to go back. So before we started, I was thumbing through a comic that I put on the ground right before, and my cat decided to start chewing on the corner of the plastic. I had to go back and relook at Justice League Dark because I forgot how it ended, because it does not bleed into this whatsoever. So that Justice League Dark, I didn't cover it because I didn't cover that Justice League. It basically ends them fighting Merlin, and they get Zatanna under control because the Upside Down Man has been unleashed through this demon that manifests through Ragman's, suit. So Merlin ends up conjuring Arion, the old Atlantean sorcerer, to be his Sapphire Knight, which I'm sure means something in Arthurian legend. Connor,
I'll be honest.
Green Knight.
I wasn't listening because, again, I'm going to reread. I'm going to actually read all this Justice League Dark stuff at some point.
But a Sapphire Knight, that very King Arthur.
It's not ringing a bell, but
right. Okay.
Probably.
So that's how that ended. This picks up with a triumphant Merlin just wreaking havoc, and the Justice League Dark back at their headquarters. Wonder Woman shows up. She hasn't been on the team in a minute because she's been away. And that the helm of Naboo has a new patron, basically. And it's an Egyptian goddess named, where's the name? Because she reaches out to Diana. Shoot. Oh, Huahet. And that's now who's speaking through Fate. And we just get a lot of magic being kind of in chaos because of Merlin. And then they bring in Randir Singh, who is the telepath that the Knight went to go, that she did stuff with Batman. And this is where it kind of gets out, where it feels like I'm reading stuff that hasn't happened yet. But Randir Singh talks about how he saw how basically he's the reason that Jason Blood and the demon are able to coexist now, because Jason Blood had got sent to heaven, but he got bored. The demon was in hell, so they'd rather be rejoined. And he's kind of hinting that he knows that there's something up with Jason Blood, because no one just leaves heaven, right? And with the demon, no one just leaves hell. And this plays, for me, I was, thinking about the Justice League Dark future state where Detective Chimp was bonded with the demon and Jason Blood was one of Merlin's knights. And so that's all very much here. But Randy Singh talks about how he, while sleeping, because when he was a prisoner of Merlin to pull him off the board, he saw Merlin go and talk with this being, and there's something missing with Merlin. And so, as he says that you weren't meant to see any of this, that's actually what brings him into that Merlin takes him off the board by sedating him and whatnot. But then this dude shows up who I have no idea who this guy was, but he's a blind man wearing a white suit, and he's called Mr. E. So Connor, real quick, do you know who Mr. E is?
The magician.
Yeah, I had no idea who this guy was.
He's used to play up in a lot of Constantine stuff, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, Constantine hates him. So when he shows up, Constantine is just like, I'm not, if we're involving this guy, I'm not dealing with him. But he does everything backwards. So he shows up and he drinks from an empty glass that when he puts it back down, it fills with whiskey, which completely befuddles Bobo. Because he's like, wait, he just drank his whiskey backwards? And come to find out that I guess he got banished to the end of time, and he had to walk backwards to catch back up. And
which I believe is often the take that you see with a bunch of Merlin stories as well.
Okay, well, there you go, because as he's there at the end of time, he sees Merlin talking to this dark god that Randy Singh had seen, and it comes to find out it is the not Kali Yuga, where's his name? It's basically Darkseid's dad. And that Merlin was at the end of time, and that he sees all of this backwards, that he basically he took a piece of Merlin in order, and that's what has weaponized Merlin, is that when he took this piece, he says, you don't have it in you to be cruel enough to prepare Earth for what's to come, so I shall be cruel for you, and cruel enough for all within the universe. And all this stuff is written backwards in the way that if you want to make sense of it, you have to read it from the bottom to the top. You could read it from the top to bottom and just fill in, but I think that was pretty cool. But yeah, so basically he had tampered with Merlin, and then now Merlin's gonna come and wreak havoc. But Mr. E wants to make a deal with them in order to defeat Merlin, and he leaves and then shows back up to talk to Zatanna and Khalid, and it was Yuga Khan, by the way. He saw a part of Merlin's soul being torn away by Yuga Khan, but I found it before I saw what had happened because he's doing stuff backwards. So he took the piece of that soul. So now they have to basically work with him in order to defeat Merlin. And he put it in one of his eye sockets. And that in it when Zatanna looks into the eye, it's basically all the sense of wonder that Merlin had. So it's like the purest part of him. They make a blood deal, and she ends up with it. And now this is a piece that I guess they're going to try to restore into Merlin to stop him. On any other week, this would have been fine. However, just like it feels like it's a story that's of its own, because it doesn't really feel like it's continuing what had happened in the last issue of Justice League Dark. And just reading it, it felt very tedious. I didn't know who this Mr. E guy was. I mean, it was very interesting to see him doing stuff backwards. And I love any time of storytelling when they play with that. And MV's that's kind of his brand at this point. But yeah, it's kind of getting back on the weirder elements of Justice League Dark, where I like it more when it focuses in on magic or horror. And this is just kind of like the off-center stuff. It was just kind of a mess with trying to throw in Randy Singh and all the other plot threads, almost as if like they're trying to wrap up, and I feel like if we had this as an actual book and not a backup, this wouldn't feel as messy. So it almost feels like they're trying to do a ton of storytelling in this annual because they don't have the space for it elsewhere, and that's kind of a shame. The art's pretty good. It's very distinct in the way that it feels like, I don't want to say sloppy, but like sketchy. Like it feels, compared to the art that we've been getting in Justice League Dark, it's very crisp and fine. So it almost again makes it feel like its own thing. But yeah, man, on any other week, I wish I hadn't read this just because this was so packed. But I'm gonna give this a 6.5.
Batman the Detective issue 6, Tom Taylor writing with Andy Kubert and Sandra Hope on the art. So this has been a while since issue 5, a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
And I will say for me, like, it's funny that obviously Tom Taylor's usually the book that I'm looking forward to the most, but this has been my least favorite Tom Taylor book that I've read.
Me too.
This was the sort of book where this week I was like, do I really need to read this on top of everything else?
Honestly,
it's because it was the last issue.
Yeah, it was the last issue, so I felt like, okay, I'll just have to read it because it's the last one.
Get it over and done with.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's not actually that bad. It's not get over and done with, but more in the context of there were 10 books this week, 6 or 7 of them annual sized.
Yeah,
and and pretty much all of them were more interesting than this final issue.
Yeah.
Of this.
On a regular week, this would have been fine. But the fact that I read this and it kind of just amounts to nothing, I was just like, oh man, what a ending of a wet fart. And I could have read Wonder Woman. Between this and Justice League Dark, I made bad decisions.
Yeah, this felt, honestly, the arc as a whole feels a little bit throwaway to me by the end. I didn't really get much out of it in terms, like, almost everything else Taylor's written, like, hits, like, emotional beats or does, like, even, like, when you look at Deceased, not even as a whole, even just that mini he did, like, right, which was, like, 3 issues, like, that hit so many high notes that it felt so worthwhile even without the rest of Deceased. Whereas this, I get to the end of it and go, oh, it's kind of just a throwaway miniseries that most people are going to forget.
Yeah. And also, at the end, it's Batman learning that lesson of, oh, we should help people, which is the second or third book this week with that message that, I'm like, yes, Batman should know this already.
Right, and that's my whole thing here, too, is like the whole, I wish they had introduced the Squire stuff earlier, because I felt like Taylor jammed that in at the end, because I love the dynamic between Squire and Batman while Knight's gone, and that made for a lot of fun interactions. But here, when you find out about her mom, I was just like, well, this is just kind of a wasted plot point now.
Yeah, well, no, explain what that is, Matt. Who's her mom?
Oh, so I thought you wanted to go in order, but... Well,
I mean, this one I don't feel like we're going to talk about as much.
So in the in Equilibrium's origin, right? There was that attack.
There's the villain. Just because I forgot her name was Equilibrium until they said it. Until they said it 5 times, I forgot who they were. I was like, "Who's Equilibrium?" Oh, it's the white Batman chick.
I just remembered Equilibrium just because that sounds like an organization and not a villain.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so the villain, her origin is tied up in the smuggling operation that went wrong. Well, it turns out that Squire's mother was one of the smugglers and ran back in to save the other person.
Well, which we saw. Like this was a flashback to a scene that we got back in like issue 2 or something like that.
Right. And she got put away for life, and that's why the Knight had taken the Squire. And like that would have been nice, but it's just kind of thrown in at the end. And like again, I like it in principle. The execution though, it was. I didn't need more Batman busting up Equilibrium members. Yeah,
I think the part of the problem for me is that like it introduces that Squire's the daughter of this woman we saw in this flashback back in like issue 2, but it then uses that to try and be kind of the emotional beat at the very end when she's like, oh, she's reunited with her daughter. Like Bruce got her out of prison and like she's reunited with her daughter finally, and I kind of felt like, you introduced this so late on, and I don't think that Squire has been like focused on enough to make her like parenthood like the core of this.
And it feels like Bruce is just pulling strings as a favor rather than actually caring about releasing this potentially wrongly convicted woman. There is one
thing. So the whole plot is that Equilibrium's going to like destroy all London. So they're all going to London to have this big face off, right? The one thing I kind of liked is that Bruce actually stops Descartes from killing Equilibrium, and I kind of like that it's argued to her that, well, Batman just saved you, and your whole thing is you kill who Batman. And I love that she does just try and kill herself. Like, she just puts the gun up to her chin, and obviously they stop her, right? But
right, I like that Batman stops it, and I was like, wait, what? And then they're even like, yeah, you shattered some bones in your hand, didn't you?
Well, yeah, because
like, maybe.
Well, we have to explain how he did it before you to explain that. So
puts his hand over the top.
Yeah,
of the gun.
so the gun's up to her chin, and he just goes in with his hand like that, and like just blocks it with his hand. And I'm like, I know you've got good gloves, but like, how tactically strong are these gloves? Because that was a bullet point blank.
Stop the bullet, but the impact's still shattering some bones there. Yeah, well, which is fair.
It could even theoretically shatter her jaw, right? Because the kick's enough.
Up, yeah.
But I did like it. I think it's Descartes, or it might be Knight. It's like you broke some hand or bones in the hand.
You shattered your hand into a lot of pieces, though.
Yeah.
It was the one sequence in the whole issue that felt kind of inspired. Like there was a good idea here, whereas the rest of it just kind of felt like by the numbers to me. Yeah. I didn't really get much, and I've not been a fan of the art, and it ends very quickly because, like, actually, so the page, about the shatter on the hand right after the gunshot, it's the very next page is the final page of the book, which is like the mum getting out of prison and hugging Squire. So it's very rapid and sudden.
It felt like it needed another issue, or more. The 6 issues needed to repaste elsewhere.
Yeah.
But for here at the end, it needed more time.
Yeah, and there was definitely stuff in the other issues that I felt was superfluous, so I think it probably just needed to be rethought and
just edit it down a bit.
Yeah, and just paste around.
Some extra stuff added here. Yeah.
Which is a shame. And we've been kind of lukewarm on this book since quite early on, I'd say, by and large. So this is not a surprise. It's weird to be so blasé on a Taylor book, but I mean, it doesn't feel that bad in the sense that like he was firing on all cylinders like with another issue this very week, and he's got multiple things going right now that are all great.
It's not like this is a bad book. Like, it's perfectly readable and fine. Like if you pick up the trade of this on sale or whatever, and you'll be like, oh, it's a Tom Taylor Batman book.
However, if someone
this is a fine read.
Yeah, but if someone asked me for Tom Taylor recommendations, this is down far on everything of his that I read.
Yeah, this is.
It's not on the list. It's not a recommendation. It's a if you want to, for completion's sake, read everything he's done. Then it's not a bad read. But
do you like the idea of Henry Ducard? All right, you might like this.
Yeah, if someone asked me, oh, shall I pick this up? I've got spare budget. I'm picking up trades this week. This is out. Shall I pick it up? Like, sure, why not? You're not going to hate it.
You're probably disappointed. You'll be disappointed, though. I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed by the standards of a Tom Taylor book. But if you kind of go in, it's like, it's a perfectly fine Batman.
Well, yeah, but that's the point, though, is that you go into it, it's a Tom Taylor Batman book. He's definitely got a better Batman in him in this, and then one day I'm assuming we're going to get it.
No, I agree with that. But I'm saying, if someone just asked me, oh, shall I just, it's a Batman mini, I'm kind of interested. Shall I read it?
Sure. I give him credit for doing something that's outside of Gotham with Ducard and Knight and Squire, and he did try new things. It's not like he's just like mailing it in. It just
right, given that we're moving back to Batman Inc. now, and we'll be doing globe-trotting Batman again.
Hopefully not too much, because I don't really like Batman Inc. as a concept, but.
Sure. I mean, that seems to be the focal point of Williamson's Batman stuff is Batman Inc.
Yeah, and I'm saying I hope it doesn't last too long.
Well, regardless, this was a disappointment, and I was just like, man, all right, cool. I'm glad this is over.
Yeah, I'm just not a big network of Batmen. Like, I mean, I'm fine with having a network of Bat family members, but like, I just don't like the idea of.
Yeah, I like the Club of Heroes. Use sparingly. Like, that's the thing with Inc. was it gave them so much focus.
But it's been so long now since we've had that I'm kind of looking forward to it. Also, as for being disappointed, I think I was disappointed in the first issue, but I kind of, once we'd had that issue and saw what this book was, I kind of recalibrated my expectations a pretty hefty amount. That I'm no longer disappointed by this final issue.
No, if anything, I'm more disappointed. Fine, I'm more disappointed now than I think I have been the whole thing, because now it's like it never got better. So now it's sunk in that it's just this.
I'm with Pete on this one. I was just like, oh, okay, this was a.
I think I'd lowered my expectations enough to being like, this is just what this book's going to be.
Well,
I'm okay with
that. I think we believe in Tom Taylor too much.
Yeah, but I don't want to lower my expectations. If I have to lower my expectations with a Tom Taylor book, then it's disappointing.
Yes.
Yes, it was disappointing at issue 1, and then I lowered my expectations. Like, forget this is a Tom Taylor book. Just it's a random Batman mini that's coming out. On those bar, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but it's just fine. It's not even like it's not like we're saying it's not up to Taylor standards, but it's still pretty good. I wouldn't say it's pretty good. I'd say it's like passable. You know, I
think the phrase I used was it's enjoyable enough. I stand by that.
I don't know if I'd go that far. It's ultimately where I think I'm sitting at.
I hate lining up with Pete. I just want you to know this.
Was this the one you had said that was the you wish you hadn't read?
Yeah, okay. I just wish like
this was the most likely candidates bit for me. I think when you said that.
Yeah.
So fair enough. That's what it is.
But I still didn't read a Ghostmaker story, so that's a win. So.
And we still like, I mean, at least me and Matt have been pretty vocal and not been super hot in the art in this book the whole time. So
the one thing I do like is the big Jack dude who has the family in London. I do like the way he's drawn just because he's so grotesque, but that doesn't match the rest of the art in the book because everyone is kind of.
I really like that panel of Batman with the drones behind him and the cape flowing. I think that panel is great.
Yeah. Basically, Chloe's whole thing. She's bought a lot of drones from the U.S. military that she's going to use to bomb the shit out of London. But then Batman reprograms them because he's got Oracle who can reprogram things.
Also, on that page, you see Dick there with Babs, and he looks like a really old man.
He looks horrible. Yeah. He looks.
I think that's more the coloring than anything else. It looks like he's like got grey hair.
He looks like for some reason it was like, wait, is this meant to be set in the future? Because all of a sudden Dick looks like he's from like Kingdom Come or something like that. What's going on?
He's got the Reed Richards hair going on.
He does. And it's funny, I said that on the same page. That is that panel that I think is the best moment of this book or this issue. Is on that same page. Also,
not to be totally negative, I do like that Knight's castle is set up like a bat cave with trophies from her exploits as Knight and Squire.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. It was a nice little moment. Thought the art looked good there too. I think Kubert sometimes just everyone's Bane, and it's tough,
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what are you giving Batman Detective issue 6?
It's a 5.
I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with Matt and go with a 5 on this one. Okay, there you go. Wonder Girl issue 5, Joelle Jones with Adriana Melo on the art. So this is the first issue that Jones herself is not also doing the art, which is interesting.
But it feels like Melo is definitely copying.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I actually double checked because I wrote down the names for all these books before I read this one because I read this in the last batch, and when I went to look at the first couple of pages, I went, "Wait, are you sure this is not still Jones?" And checked. I was like, "Oh, that is."
Yeah, because there's a couple panels where the faces are a little bit wonky, and I was like, "That's not like Jones." And then I went and double checked. I was like, "Oh, this is Melo, who we're fans of."
In terms of the comparison of the style, like matching that for a filler issue, it's about as perfect as you're ever going to find.
It's definitely passing for Jones a lot of the time, just maybe not quite as perfect, but
it's got the do you know what I think it is that really sells it for me? It's those heavy thick inks.
So it's funny, I remember we were a bit more lukewarm in the last issue of this. It was kind of running out of steam because the plot was getting a little bit rushed and messier and like just not as cohesive. And I'm still kind of feeling that to an extent. Like, there's stuff I like in this issue. There's I felt like you ended this cliffhanger of like, is she going to drink the drink to become like indoctrinated, right? And obviously she decides not to, like very early on in this. I kind of and maybe it's the delays between issues where I've just sort of lost the feeling of this, the pacing of it. But it just kind of felt stilted to me, the way it just kind of quickly happens, and then we go into an action scene like almost like immediately.
Yeah. But I feel like this is the Yara that we're familiar with, that she's just like, you know what? Upon second thought, I'm going to dump this out in front of you guys.
I still really like all the character stuff. I do think the story's a bit at this point.
I still like the character of Yara. I still like the decision she's made here. I think the way it built up to the decision last issue felt weird because I didn't like that issue that much. I felt the way it kind of like she seemed to just accept things really easily, and then she's turning around and like disregarding it here, which is fine, but... I don't know. I don't think it earned us thinking she would even be tempted.
No,
I guess
not at all. But I always took it as she's just bilking them for training to be Wonder Woman. Because she even asked, "Where's Chiron?"
I guess.
So I took that as she never really intended to do it because she likes Earth too much.
I think if that's the case, I will critique the writing, saying I never got that idea enough.
Gotcha. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. Because I never felt
I also
it. But...
feel like, and Connor, I don't know if you agree. The Greek gods, the Olympians are a little bit off. Like, I feel like these aren't the Olympians. Like Hera feels on, but like Hephaestus and Eros, and they feel a little bit too, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not maniacal, but conniving, right? Like,
I don't know. That feels kind of in line for me.
Yeah.
But even Hephaestus, just going on with Hera, like, and being a monster that's swinging a hammer, like that felt a little bit off.
Yeah, maybe.
But and I get why, because it seems like there's like Themyscira and not Themyscira, the Greek gods are making a play on something bigger is going on.
Yeah, Joe. I think part of the problem with this issue as well is that it cuts to Cassie, right? And she's basically
too much Cassie.
It's not that it was too much Cassie. I don't have a problem with that. It's that basically she's talking about her time with Yara and like looking for Yara, and like maybe she's had a good influence on Artemis and whatever. But then she just kind of like is told in the scene what's just happened, what we've just seen happen in Olympus, and I'm just kind of like, why are we hearing this again immediately? Like, why did we have to hear her find out this information? Because there's nothing interesting about her finding out.
Fundamentally, because I think we've seen this before. Jones is not the best writer.
Yeah.
I mean that's the answer. I get.
And I hate to kind of put it as bluntly as that.
I get that's the answer. I'm just saying that like I don't usually.
No, I know. Like, this happens every time that there's a Jones book where it looks gorgeous, and she has great ideas. I think, but it doesn't quite know how to pace.
She needs a co-writer.
Yeah, I think a co-writer would really help, or maybe just stronger editing.
Yeah, maybe because it kind of felt like we cut to another scene only for a character to mostly learn something that we just literally read in the previous scene.
And that's what I meant by too much Cassie, is like, while all this is going on, it feels more like, okay, we need to explain the Amazonian tribe more, and then have them explain everything.
It was fine. No, when she starts talking to the Brazilian Amazon, that was fine because it started to give us new information and was starting to contextualize what they were. So that's fine, I think. And you see stuff with Yara fighting, the big god cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
Which does look great, admittedly. It's a pretty scene. But it's a little bit exposition-y, but I do think learning more about the Brazilian Amazon tribe and what you thought there was only one like Amazons, like one strong woman clan. Like no, there's more than one. And
I did think there was some weird editorial choices in setting up this place, because we see them fly in, and there's a big caption box, as they're going in over to the place, and it says Akahim, home of the Amazons, right?
Oh, well, yeah, known as the was it the Esquicida? Yeah, Esquicida.
Yeah, and then so that's fine, and then a few pages, and then we cut away and we go back to Olympus and do stuff like that.
And it's just Yara fighting random
things,
and
this is fine. And then we come back to Cassie and the Brazilian Amazon, and they say, and it's again big, location box, city of Akahim, and then it's immediately going, so this is Akahim. I'm like, yeah, I got that. You've told me that twice already as a reader.
Yeah.
You either should have kept that a mystery as to where we were, or move that dialogue forward, or done that on that double page splash on the way in. Had her tell us that for the first time. It felt so jarring to read it twice in a narration first and then have it in dialogue being explained to us as well.
And the same page, like literally it says city of Akahim, and then this is Akahim. Like really back, like,
and that's after we'd been introduced to it 3 or 4 pages ago as well.
I'm okay with them reiterating the name because it is a new name for us. We have to learn that, like, if you just say it once, it's not enough to really settle in. But like having it right next to each other twice in the same page is definitely clunky to me.
And it's for me, it's the introduction of it being after the other 2 instances.
And I think as I'm looking at the issue again, like I even more so than when I read it, like I'm really noticing just how kind of throwaway a lot of the fighting that Yara's doing is. Like it cuts back to her for like 3 or 4 pages fighting something from Olympus, and most of it just feels like this is just kind of like pretty art fighting for the sake of it. There's not really a whole lot happening. story-wise progression.
I was really just like, it ends on that big, it's like, oh, you killed Jerry, and then immediately it's just like, right, carry on fighting, and then Jerry's never mentioned again.
Let me make a person wreck. You killed Jerry. Someone killed Jerry.
Jerry.
That's fair.
And the end of the issue, I do like that they're bringing in Donna Troy, because that's the reveal, is that Donna Troy's already there for Cassie to meet. And I'm like, okay, literally all the Wonder Girls are in this book now. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, the actual progression of the story in this, it felt like the Cassie stuff was the more important part of the book. And all of Yara's stuff, other than turning down the goblet at the start, like, it was just random fighting constantly.
A little bit hopeful, because they talk about how, once Yara's returned, we're going to march on Themyscira. That feels like it's going to tie into that, all that stuff coming up.
And maybe that'll give it some much needed direction, which it's kind of felt aimless. And it's kind of weird that it already feels like that with issue 4 and 5. Like, it's 4 and 5. You're still in your first arc. Like, why does it feel like this?
It felt like they were introducing the character and setting it up, but then they were like, okay, we've got this story coming up. We kind of need to spin the wheels until we get there. And there wasn't a good story to kind of...
Which is maybe a fault of Joelle Jones' writing, is that a better writer would think of a 2 or 3 issue like little story that would maybe like give her a nice little arc, maybe a nice little story to just sort of really interest us to Yara and how she thinks.
I think that's one of the other problems with this book is, while I like seeing Cass and Donna now, I like these characters, I do think the first handful of issues should have focused on Yara more.
Yeah, I mean, what sold us on this book was that 2-issue story, which was just Yara, and it was just
which is still fantastic.
Yeah,
right.
So
some of the play with the Brazilian folklore type of stuff too, because that kind of lays the foundation for this lost tribe of Amazonians, right? Like,
which I think all the Olympus stuff like probably came in too soon. It should have been focused maybe more on just like defining Yara and defining the tribe she came from, and then start bringing in the other parts that interfering with it.
I wonder if we're saying, Jones got not quite got the direction, not quite maybe got the writing chops. I wonder if this is maybe not quite her fault, in the sense that maybe editorial have said, we're doing this crossover event, you need to have this stuff set up by then.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we haven't got this kind of first arc of Yara like we're kind of asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may not really be her fault. It's really tough to judge.
More seasoned writers could handle it better and have handled it better.
But it is telling to me that, there's one good book that I intentionally left to the end, but otherwise my last batch of books was this and Batman the Detective. It was clearly the 2 books that I was the least looking forward to this week. And it's a shame, because unlike Batman the Detective, which was just kind of disappointing from the start in a way, this was like super exciting to get into, because that Future State issue or 2 issues was really good. And the first issue of this I still think was pretty solid. Like, it still did a lot of things I liked in that first 1 or 2 issues, but it very quickly started to feel like it was just like spinning its wheels and just being a bit muddy in its storytelling.
I still don't understand why Yara is so important to the Greeks when they have literally any other Amazons to pull from, like even Artemis and her band of the band of MacDonald. Why is Yara so important?
It does feel like there's a reason. It just feels that we're not getting to it because we're not going to do that story until after the crossover, or maybe it's a part of the crossover. But either way, we're not getting to it yet because of that.
Right, but like I would like to have a little bit of like even a tease of why, because it's not like she's the only demigod that's
it reeks of
Amazon.
It reeks of like a TV show where they've got a good overall idea, and there's like part of it's like a mystery of what's going on, but they're not actually they don't do a good job of actually making the stories compelling that are building up to when we eventually get the mystery. So you end up just waiting around for like the good part, and that's a sign of it's a sign of bad writing, unfortunately. And I think Jones here is struggling with the issue to issue actually having a compelling story. So I mean, I'll lately still read issue 6, and if it's going to cross over with the other Wonder books, and I'm reading them anyway, then it makes more sense to sort of. But it's going to be telling that when that crossover's done, if any of us still want to read Wonder Girl.
I suspect I will probably read it after the crossover to see if it can.
Yeah.
Because during the crossover, even if it's not amazing, it'll be like, well, you're doing crossover stuff. This might not be your fault. Right.
But it's kind of sad at that point where we're getting to issue like 10 or whatever, and like we still keep saying this is not great, but it might not be her fault.
I think after that will be okay. You got an issue maybe 2 to prove that you've got a direction for the book and you've got something to to do with it.
And to be fair, it may still be very true. It may not be her fault, but even if we're still having to sort of question that at a certain point, it doesn't matter.
To a point where it doesn't matter if it's not her fault.
It's just not good. So you're going to stop. So that's unfortunate. But okay, there you go. Wonder Girl issue 5. What are you giving it, Matt?
6.5.
Car?
I'm going to give you another 6. A lot of it because the art is still really nice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with 5.5. Just a little bit better than Detective, which is... Yeah, that's Batman the Detective, not Detective Comics, which was much better. Just for the record. Just because, I felt really frustrated with this, especially, even, I actually think it went down a little bit as I was looking through it as we were talking about it. I was like, you know what, I'm actually more annoyed at this now looking back at it, because I'm realizing how much of it was just fluff. So,
That page, though, where the one, Lost Tribe, she's like, we're going to march on Themyscira, that whole just Cassie looking butterfly, just the way it's proportioned out, that looks great, you know.
Yeah, so if they're matching on Themyscira and this, like, you know, new group that's introduced in the Wonder Woman annual are going to, like, attack Themyscira, like, like you can see all this converging, maybe, big conflict.
Don't say convergence and DC in the same sentence. You'll give them an idea.
I was using converge just for the word's meaning, not because it's related to a title of anything. Just for the record.
Still, my point still stands.
All right. Human Target issue 2. Tom King writing with Greg Smallwood on the art. I trust Connor did go back and read issue 1 to catch up for this.
I did read issue 1.
Very good.
And then decided not to read issue 2.
Oh, you.
I thought, very briefly, art, gorgeous. Tom King's narration, I hate it.
I cannot disagree more.
No, that's fine.
Why are you the way you are?
I have found that there's maybe like 1 in 3, 1 in 4, maybe even 1 in 5 Tom King books that I actually like at this point. So the rest of them, they just don't land for me. And this is another one that didn't land.
All I could hear in my head is, you know, that moment in Home Alone where someone's like, Kevin, you're such a disease. Like, I'm hearing that with Connor's name.
That's fine.
I will feed you
enjoy it.
Tarantula.
Yeah, no, art, gorgeous.
You ginger filth. That's all I've got to say.
The story idea, fine. I'm into it. I like the mystery. The actual narration, just couldn't get into it. And when that's the bulk of what your book is, that's not for me.
What a tosspot you are. All right. So issue 2. Obviously, the cover did definitely imply that ice was going to be a big factor of this one. And it seems like, each issue might focus on an individual member of the Justice League International, issue 2 onwards.
But you know what that means? There's going to be a Guy Gardner issue.
Yes. Yes, that does mean that, unfortunately.
Also, a Booster Gold issue. Guess who's excited?
Is it going to be a Booster Gold issue, or is it going to be a Blue and Gold issue? Will they team up?
I don't care. Either way. I
think Matt will be happy, either
way.
So, this issue, like, we get a little bit of a just sort of Human Target getting a slice of pizza from the place he lives above, and a little bit of context for why he lives there. But we get into it builds up to ice because he's like, oh, there's a woman looking for you, and some women you can't say no to, and it treats her like the femme fatale almost, right? Where she's in the investigator's office, and the coloring here. There's a trend in this issue of like doing like the light of the window, which is more orange, like creating like a square of light on like, their faces. It's used a lot in the art in this, and it's really nice. It's even used later on when they're outside at the sunset and stuff. But it creates a really nice, strong visual style for the book. And it plays with a lot of the tropes. It has him talking about like feeling the chill in the air, which is literal in the sense that she does actually have like an ice power that cools down the atmosphere. But but it also comes off as the her sense like attractive and being entrenched with it.
Like I said that how noir Rorschach was. That's like a neo-noir. This is like
pulp.
This is King going like, I'm writing a Sam Spade issue.
Yeah.
Because down from her showing up, it already being in the office when he opens the door, to him talking about basically the chill in the air and how it disappears, or was she doing it on purpose?
Yeah, smelling the and like sometimes like when she goes to wipe his like because he's got some like pizza sauce in his cheek, Like the way the panels do close-ups of his cheek and her like licking her finger and her mouth, like it's really focusing on all the things that he's focusing on. So it's really strong artwork in the in the direction sense, where it's like picking its panels and picking what its sequencing is. And he's coughing a little bit, and she knows I don't know if she knows exactly that he's dying, but she knows that he was poisoned, and that's why
she talked to Doc Midnight.
Yeah.
Right.
So it sets up all this stuff, all these strong, it's like the room's purple, but there's all these yellow lines of light from the blinds. So really good stuff. But basically he's like, hey, let's go somewhere, and she suggests he says somewhere warm, and she suggests the beach. And one of the great things about the narration, which Connor doesn't like because he's weird, is that he's like, I can smell her perfume. So when she asks, like, if you've got time, like, he just says, I lie, and then the speech bubble is all the time in the world. And it tells you exactly that he is, like, he can't say no to her. Like, he's enthralled with her. So they drive to the beach, and it's like a few hours drive, and we get her hair blown in the wind, and she explains her backstory about how it's kind of a lie, and it's, she's not this princess. It's actually just she accidentally killed her parents with her power.
Yeah, her grandpa and her dad. And I love that because it always, like, being a little bit familiar with JLI and her whole Ice Princess story was always like, this is kind of weird. This doesn't really match, but whatever. So I like that King deconstructs it here and it's just like, well, no, that's a lie she told to cover up her own trauma. And because it's more fun if she's a fairy princess that grew up around polar bears than the fact that she accidentally killed her grandfather and father over, her being herself. And I like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of her, like, looking at him, like, over the sunglasses in her blue dress, and they're walking down the beach, and they're talking about fire, which, or they're not, more specifically, because that's what he points out, is like, she's like, well, you're not going to ask why I wanted to talk to you. And he's like, well, you've kind of already told me, because the one thing you've not mentioned this whole time is fire. And that means that she's, like, maybe a little bit worried that that's who could have been the killer. If one person has a motive, it might be her, because Lex Luthor helped a villain kill her. And so it gets into that. There's also the stone skipping in the water, but she makes a little ice stone for him to throw, and just all these little moments. He really likes to obsess in the little details, which is, I think, what makes the pacing of this book and a lot of King's prestige books read so well.
Yeah. Well, and I like here too that they almost feel like storyboards, right? So it adds a cinematic quality, because in a lot of the pages where she's going over things that have happened in the past,
when she's telling the stories that are basically flashbacks, it has a different art style, which is a lot more. I don't even know how you describe it. Where it's almost like it's like the white space is kind of like the highlights are actually just white space that's left uncolored, and it's got a very distinct kind of like bleach look to it.
Yeah, and like all the dialogue is on one side of the page. Yeah. And then everything she's counting, it's just art. Like, there's no words over it, and it's just it's stunning. Like, and
it feels flashbacky, for lack of a better term, like having it in this sort of different style.
Cool. And you look at the pages with her talking with him, it's not as uniform. Like, the panels don't exactly line up all the time, so it really makes that difference. So
yeah, for sure.
Good Lord,
that is a loud vehicle.
I don't know where that's garbage already came. So who knows what that was? I wonder if someone's moving in.
Just a 747 flying really low over Matt's house.
Yeah, right. It's Con Air.
Yeah. Hey, that was over Texas. They end up in Vegas at the end, though.
They end up in Vegas, yeah. Which as I bring up, that airport tunnel they make lasts way long. You drive through that thing in 45 seconds. But in Con Air, it lasts 7 minutes.
It happens. So, and then she's like, hey, let's go in the water. Let's go and get some bathing suits. And, it does the thing where she's in her bathing suit, and he's like he just says Jesus. His narration just says Jesus because he's gobsmacked.
I get, and the art matches too. This is why I went and downloaded Smallwood's Vampironica, which I know I'm in an Archie thing, but like it's Smallwood's art doing Riverdale, like in Archie, which this like this will, if it looks even half as good as this, I'm in for a treat.
Oh yeah.
You know, because like it's just like you brought up pulp in the style. Even the art here is very pulpy. This almost looks like a 60s movie, right? The colors, like it reminds me of Charade here. So
very good film, may I add.
yeah.
So yeah, they go swimming. And it's pretty cold already, and she like offers to make him an ice island to go on. And it's doing a lot of the thing where it's just the square of light. But yeah, she explains the backstory of the Overmaster. I forgot the name of the villain earlier on, but that's who it was.
No, yeah, the Overmaster.
The Overmaster. And at first I was like, what does this have to do with like Lex and like a motive? Because like she doesn't mention Lex at first, and it's not until the second part of the story where I was like, no, Lex was helping, and Guy knew about it and like spread the story. And it just like, you know, it's setting up all this stuff where it's like presenting multiple motives. And she actually ends up kissing him to help with the cough, because he doesn't have his canteen on him, because he's, you know, they're out in the water. And she's able to like help him with a kiss, and so it's all very like dreamy and erotic, and it's got this like, and even the drive by, like the shot, the panel of the city, which is like before it like shows them pulling in at into the driveway. It has that kind of, like you say, that 60s neon like kind of sunset feel to it. It's almost like you're looking at like Miami Vice or something like that, but just with like a more pastel 60s look than a 80s one.
It reminds me of La La Land in that Technicolor way.
Yeah,
right?
All about La La Land. Yeah,
like the gradients going, and it's clearly LA. You have the palm trees in the front. But like I know what you're saying about Miami Vice because the pastels.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the Technicolorness of it.
So, yeah, she says to see her again. He's going to talk to her in the morning. And you know, it's a really nice, sweet ending to it. But what I like about this at the end and the final page is that he kind of was not plainer per se, but he already knew some of the stuff that she told him, and it was more about just like spending some time with her to sort of rule her out, and you know, you know, she'd make some excuse that she'd come, you know, just be like, because he knew that the story would get around the JLI, that he was looking into them, and yeah, and he wanted to get up close with a woman who might have killed him. And then at the end, after he takes a drink of his whiskey or whatever, he just says, "I can still smell her perfume on my suit," and that's the end of the story. So it's kind of like, okay, so he had a plan, and it was like it was successful to a point. Although one could argue that if she is the killer, or the attempted and is this it's all, again, worth reminding everyone here. The attempted murder was on Lex Luthor, not on him, right? Chance is just unfortunate that he's
caught in the. But being the human target, though, you know, the fact that this is spinning into a whole other thing now. He's trying to find out. He has 10 days left.
Yeah. What I like about this is that like it's playing with the trope of the femme fatale, and that is she being so sweet and seductive with him to like sort of like make her trust him so that he won't think it's her, or is this all genuine? Right. And I feel like maybe all the stories are going to present them in a way where they could just be trying to throw them off like their scent, like all of them.
Right.
Like I could see that happening with every single one of these characters.
They're thick as thieves, right? And that's what we know about Fire, and that Fire was. That's what I like about Ice too, right? Is like she's really tied to Guy Gardner and Fire, which is the opposite of her, right? Both of those are hot-headed characters who let their emotions do more of the control, but she's always been the reserved one. And so the fact that both of them get brought up here, right, is almost like a bridge to one of them's next that we're going to go through. Just, you know, from, because he's trying to rule out everybody. But here where it goes on to, you know, as he's drinking, the headline with the human target, right? I'm still trying to figure out what all that means. Like, why did they throw this headline in here besides just the title, right? Like,
yeah, because it is the title page at the end. Yeah, it's worth mentioning.
But like, what's there's got to be, nothing in this book happens by accident, right? So like, what's the, like, is he a bigger deal than we are led to believe, right? Like if the human target's making Daily Planet headline news, you know,
is it just because of the assassination attempt on Lex and he was there? Let me just be that. Like that would work.
But I like that that's here. That they seem to know who he is now.
I
So-
think what I liked about the ending is that it was like, okay, this was part of his plan. He actually wanted her to come see him, as he wants to see all the members. But that final line of like her like being in his head, it's like, but her trick, if it is a trick, still worked, and that she still kind of won him over and like made him obsessed, and he's still thinking about her like in a romantic sense, and he's he's entranced by her beauty and everything. Like her spell on him has worked, even if he went into this planning to speak to her, to try and rule her out or try and get a sense of. I feel like everything that she's told him is going to be important, and we'll get more from each person, and it'll build. We'll get to something where we may have a hard time figuring out who it is. If it is one of them, maybe there's going to be a swerve and it isn't any of them. But
right,
yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, and I feel like this is going to do a really good job of making each issue feel distinct, because if I've not looked at the cover for the next one to see who's it focuses on, but each character he spends time with in each issue is probably going to make each one feel unique and memorable.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So no, really great stuff. Matt, what are you giving Human Target issue 2?
I mean, this is a 9.
Yep, I can't argue with that. 9 out of 10. Easy peasy. So now Connor's going to talk about an 80-page book. Wonder Woman, Historia, the Amazons, issue 1. Kelly Sue DeConnick writing with Phil Jimenez on the art. Black Label book, which I would have liked to check out, but it was a huge book, and this was a very busy week. So
I will say it reads significantly quicker than 80 pages would lead you to believe, because most of it is double-page spreads, and a lot of them are splashes with not actually that much text on.
And so it's still a 40-page book on a week full of 48-page books.
Yes, but this was by far the book I was most excited for. This was the first thing I read out of everything. This was easily the one that if I was reading only one book this week, this was the one I would have chosen. Obviously, going in, maybe that changed by the end, but like that was the one I was going in. I was like, this is the book I'm reading. This has been 4 years in the making, I think, at this point. And
well, that's only because Red Hood stopped. I mean, if Red Hood was still going on, that was it this week.
That's why. Yeah, well, this is a book I've been excited for years at this point, and then all the early buzz was coming out, over the last week or so, and people were saying very good things, and I got very excited, and I'm pleased to say that it lived up. Also, there's like 7 or 8 pages, maybe 10 pages at the end that are not story. They are like supplemental material, essentially.
Does that add to the 70 pages?
They're still in those.
The 80s?
Yeah, they're part of that. There's like 10 pages of that 80 is like that.
Okay, so it's a 70-page book then. So it's a 35-page. Now we're getting closer to manageable.
Like I say, it doesn't actually take that long to read, and I would definitely recommend reading it because it is pretty fantastic. So it's kind of split into 2 halves. The first half of this book, which again, on it being split into 2 halves, a lot of these Black Label prestige books have had this feeling where you could probably have released this as 6 issues instead of 3 if you really wanted to. You could have probably got away with that. But this early stuff is essentially the creation of the Amazons. And it plays in pretty heavily on the Perez stuff from the late 80s. The well of souls of all the women wronged that was in Taurus. I think in that book it was like, here's the last one that they saved for Diana. This is that still essentially can hold true for this. This doesn't contradict that. This is just all of the other souls going free first. And it is basically, it's all the goddesses, all the major ones. You got Hestia, Artemis, Demeter, Hecate, Aphrodite, and Athena, all doing their bit. And then Hera, of course, is maybe doing her bit. It's hard to say. But they all have very unique designs, very distinct. The art it's so colorful, vibrant. It's like what's the style? It's kind of like soft watercolors, but it's got some digital vibrancy to it as well. It's very unique. But basically, it's all these goddesses go to Zeus and be like, hey, men are shit. What are you going to do about it? And Poseidon's like, we'll send a flood. We'll start over. And they're like, no, not mankind, men. What are you going to do about it? And Zeus is basically kind of goes down to, well, men suffer too. That is literally like one of his lines of dialogue. But, well, men suffer too. And he basically goes, look, I'm not saying women on the whole aren't, don't suffer, historically, yes, they suffer at the hands of men, but some of them deserve it. It's essentially his argument.
Well, why is Zeus sounding a lot like a chud in this description here?
That is what Zeus should always sound like, because that is Zeus.
Yeah. Zeus is the ultimate Chad. There's just an a-hole that goes on trying to bang as many things as he can, even if he's not in his god form, right?
I said chud, but that was a Freudian slip. Chud is a movie.
Cannibalistic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think it's.
Then Chud 2, Bud the Chud is the sequel to Chud.
Yes, we know.
It's when Zeus says, the world's not without justice. And it's Aphrodite goes, do you mean to suggest women have done something to deserve this? And he goes, as a whole, no. On occasion, no. Individually, on occasion, you miss the point. We've all got a role to play. All us Greek gods, Ares is war, Poseidon's the sea. We're all very manly qualities, and that is reflected in the aggressive nature of man. And he's like, he's basically like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything. Just let it go. And obviously, the rest of the goddesses are not happy about this, so they make their way down to Hades, and there's a journey of each of them, except Hera, taking their own route through Hades to get down to Tartarus, where they are going to the Well of Souls, and they do do their ritual down there, and they take the souls, and they refuse to give birth to them down there. Essentially, they won't plant the seed. They will take the souls and take them up to the world where they're not corrupted. And again, all this gorgeous sequence of them making their way back and then releasing their, they're basically they're all in a jar, and then they empty their jar into somewhere in the world to create some Amazons. So you have all these different tribes of Amazons. So the first tribe is actually from Demeter, which they're like, you might have heard it was Athena who started all this off, but no, this of course it's the goddess of the harvest that the first seed's born from, and it makes sense. It goes through all the first Amazons of all of the individual tribes. So Artemis is Antiope, and Menelepe from Hecate. All of them have like one champion, so to speak. And it goes through, and you've got all these different tribes of Amazons, which again lines up really nicely with what we're doing with Amazons right now in current continuity in a weird way. Obviously, there's complete coincidence given how long this book's been in the works, but kind of lines up nicely. And it boils down to them kind of just like, right, these are the tribes. I think it says in the back matter, it basically has a little rundown of each tribe, and it's like 5 Amazons from each of the 6, I think, is what the first of each tribe was, and obviously they've got their leader, their first one, being as part of that. But the back half of this book is actually the story of Hippolyta, and it's very interesting in that it's Hippolyta is not an Amazon; she is a slave in this world, and basically is she's told to go and get rid of this child. This family has given birth to a daughter. They've already got 3 daughters. They can't afford to have another one because it's a burden. It's not going to bring in anything. They literally cannot afford to keep it. So Diana is tasked with Hippolyta is tasked with taking the child to the river, putting it in a little basket and washing it away and leaving it to the will of the gods. And if they want it, then they will find someone for it, or they will keep the baby for themselves. But after she leaves, she kind of feels bad and tries to run back to find it. And you just have this gorgeous sequence of her running down this river, and she never finds it, or at least not here. But the idea is she just runs and runs and runs. It gets very mythical here, where it has her like running through seasons all over the place. And it's very intentional, and she finally gets to a point where some bandits essentially capture her, and she's on the verge of being killed in the world of men, as it actually puts it now at this point in the book for I think the first time. And she is saved by some Amazons, and she's like, "Oh, did you kill them because what they were going to do to me?" And they're like, "No, not because of what they were going to do to you, or at least not just because of that, but because they would have done it. They've been doing that to countless women, and it's only fair that they get what they deserve." So that's kind of like the bulk of the issue here, is them having this final first meeting here, but final point of this book is introducing Apollo to this world, and it's very narrated from this future perspective, because the Amazons who meet her do say our future queen. And there's still like little bits with Hera where Hera comes along and essentially kind of sets Hippolyta on this path now, and has her on a big horse of war. It's got like a skeleton all on it, like a skull, and like a skeleton around it, and it looks badass is basically it. And she's trying to get the baby back essentially still, and it's kind of what this quest's going to lead her to. And I don't know if they're going to tell me by the end that baby will be Diana, or if it's more just symbolic.
She's going to get her baby back, baby back, baby back. She's going to get her baby back, baby back, baby back.
But that is the issue. Is those two halves of the story, but it's just told with so much style. The art is phenomenal throughout. Like, I cannot oversell it enough just how incredible this art looks. It is pretty much like nothing else. No other book I've ever read. And then like I say, you've got the back matter, the tribe of Athena, the tribe of Hecate. Like just little sketches of the 5 Amazons in each of those tribes, and a little bit of a couple of sentences about each of them. It feels pretty epic in scope. It's an incredible book. It says spring for the next issue, which Jesus is so far away, when this has already been 4 years since they announced it. So yeah, it's going to take a while to all come out. I can't remember if this was 3 issues or 4 in total. I don't know if it says on the front cover actually. No, it doesn't. It just says book 1, not what it's of. That's not helpful. Thank you for that, DC. This is going to make one hell of a gorgeous hardcover at some point, though. I definitely. Anyone who's interested, especially in the mythology side of the early Amazon stuff, I definitely think it's worth checking out. Weirdly, I know that sounds like Pete would hate this, but correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, when we looked at the early Perez stuff, you were actually surprisingly into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might enjoy this as well, because it kind of plays along that kind of line of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's phenomenal. This is like a 9. It lived up to the hype.
It's one thing, like accepting I'm going to read an 11th book in a week. It's another thing when the 11th book is 80 pages. So that
is fair.
I just did it in. There was no coming around that. All right, so Connor's reign of terror, extending the length of the show out, is not over yet. So every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, one of our higher tiers is to make myself or Connor read a book, and Connor is going to read today Undiscovered Country issue 15. Well, he's already read it, you know what I mean. He's going to discuss it. Look, this show's been on a while now. I'm getting hungry, I'm getting tired, and Connor is dragging this out. So come on now, chop.
I'm very sorry that our patrons make us read things.
No one made you read the 80-page book first, though. Right?
No, but I really wanted. That was the first book I read. I really wanted to read the 80-page book. I could have just not talked about it.
All right, go through Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, we're still in the zone of possibility. This is getting into stuff that I really love. It's about the idea of stories and what they mean. And again, this is the sort of stuff where Matt, you'd be really digging this book right now.
So when I went to San Diego, I brought the first volume, and I never got to go into it because we weren't there long enough for me to have time to read. So the next vacation, maybe.
Yeah. So there's a lot of flashback stuff. I'll get to that. That's all. A lot of the issues are really like focusing on one of the characters and just doing stuff from their childhood. This one's Ace. It's just about their family. Them being raised. You're gonna like pay blackmails, and his belief in it essentially boils down to him believing in stories more than he probably should, but ultimately being able to in the flashback, he kind of bribes his way out of it by saying this card's one that was a Zeka card's owned by George Washington, and this is one of those cards that was being transported to the museum, and it got lost, and I ended up with it, and if I give you this, will you let us go? And again, it's this idea that he is able to tell a convincing story, and he's able to do that, and that ties into why he is the one tasked with creating this American masterpiece. And again, this is delving into that. So they go, right, okay, it's time to go to deep lore. We need to go back to the roots and see what are the stories that America is built on. To the land of legends and folk tales. So they're in a forest, and they're like, "Do you hear that?" And a large blue bull comes charging at them.
Yeah, Babe the Blue Ox.
Yeah, and of course, Paul Bunyan's there with his big massive axe. So you've got like so you got Paul Bunyan, you got the Blue Bull, you got John Henry, you got Davy Crockett, Annie Oakley, and they're all like, yeah, okay, you're gonna teach us do this masterpiece, but all right, it's gonna be difficult. We'll take you to the council, essentially, the Council of Elders, which is of course led by none other than George Washington, and you've got like Betsy Ross in there as well, and George Washington tells them the story of what happened to this land, why, there was all this possibility. It was these stories made real. But someone made the Crossroads Devil real.
Ah.
Yes.
Don't tell Robert Johnson.
And that is very much, the design is based off of Robert Johnson here, with the carrying the black guitar and everything. It's like, okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with the legend at all, you can kind of see where this is going. People made deals with him, and because he was given form and life in this world of stories, the deals had weight, and he terrorized it. And eventually, even other stories and legends came to the Crossroads Devil and made deals with him. And they're like, oh no, you're going to have to stop him. And the reveal at the end of the issue is that George Washington is actually working for him. He's already made a deal with the devil. And yeah, no, this stuff is all just fantastic. This book in general has played with the idea of America and how it looks at itself. But this arc dealing with America's stories and America's myths is easily the best this book has been. It's just playing to its strengths, and there's a lot of stories about stories right now. I've been this Once and Future I've been enjoying, even Died to a lesser extent with that. But there's a few things that I've been reading recently that are stories about the idea of storytelling and how that can impact the world. And all of them have been great, and all of them are kind of exactly my jam right now. And this is yet another one doing that, even if it is just for this arc. But yeah, no, it's another great issue of this book. I'm really intrigued to see what this American masterpiece they come up with. I think it's really interesting, the idea that Uncle Sam struggles to exist in this world, even though he is one of the most iconic American stories, legends, figures.
Yeah, but it's what Uncle Sam represents, though. That's the problem.
Exactly. In this world, this place has its own versions of Uncle Sam,
right?
That he kind of can't coexist with right now. So they're kind of alone right now in this world, being guided by George Washington, who has made a deal with the devil. Yeah, I kind of love it. It's great.
Yeah, I'll get caught up. I need like 4 more hours in each day, and it would be perfect.
God, if only, right? Says the man who now has time to sit at home and do literally nothing all day.
Yeah, it must be nice, you bum.
I can't. You know what? It sounds nice, but all I really want to do is play Halo, and I can't. I can't hold the controller.
These two hands.
I legit thought he was gonna say drink.
Oh, I'm doing that anyway.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, well, how's that any different?
Shut up.
Yeah.
I can't really make any cocktails though. It's really hard to do anything like with one hand.
He can't play any video games that require two hands. So
which is like 90% of video games.
Yes.
If not more.
Even going back to the NES, you need the D-pad and the jump button.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's funny, basically. Oh god. So did you rate that bad boy? Yeah.
It's an 8.5.
There you go. All right, fantastic. Finally, the nightmare comes to
An end.
Hey, I kept my 2 at the end brief.
we
All right, cool. Let's get out of here.
Didn't feel brief to me, but that's okay. So yes. That's the part of the show now where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books in my. It's actually going to be, I read 10 books. So I have to cut 5 of them. That's actually more of a task than usual. So that's fun. All right, panel / moment. We'll start with Matt. What do you have?
It's going to be from Action Comics, and it's going to be like, as much as I want to go for the shock of Superman getting ran through. It's going to be Manchester Black beating the piss out of that dude with a stick. Like, solid moment.
It's hard to argue with it, Connor.
It's tough. It's probably something from Nightwing. A couple of good moments in that. I'll probably go with Alfred. Hanging the back keys for the Batmobile, going, yeah, pick up some milk on the way back.
Yeah, it's just tough. There's tons of stuff in Human Target I could take that are so well crafted. I'm actually tempted to kind of go with something very similar from Nightwing. I actually think I'm tempted to say that first time Alfred just says, "Very good, sir," when Dick says he's going out with Jason, when he knows Jason's not supposed to leave the house. I kind of love that moment. But I think I'm going to go a little bit earlier and say when Dick realizes that it's Alfred asking for him to come over and not Bruce, he just says, "Oh, it's you asking. Oh yeah, I'm away." I think I might go with that. Although I was also tempted to go with in Fear State Omega, like one of those early pages of Scarecrow and the Rain and Batman, like just all that stuff looks so good.
Anything from Federici, basically.
Basically, yes, the Federici stuff. Yeah. So. Yeah, but I'll go with the I'm on my way from Nightwing. It's an easy pick. All right, favorite cover of the week. So whilst Connor was rambling on, I had a look at all the covers.
I'm just trying to look now because I had 2 books at the end.
I thought the Detective Comics variant was okay, but I wasn't. Action Comics variant's kind of nice. You get Superman with like an astronaut's like helmet on, like a dome.
Yeah.
Nice sort of painted quality to that.
A 30s style astronaut helmet as well.
Yeah.
Like just like a glass bowl.
I think the Wonder Woman annual, both the regular and the variant, are kind of cool covers. The regular one's kind of like, so imagine that moment of like the kid looking up at the Wonder Woman poster and being kind of in awe of it. It's kind of that moment.
One as well.
Yeah, really nice. But ultimately, I kind of just have to go straight to the regular cover for Human Target. It's so simple, thought out. It's the pulpy kind of simplistic style that goes with the tone of the issue, and really simplistic color scheme, just the blue and the white with the skin tones. So that's my pick. Human Target regular cover, but I had to mention all those other ones. Matt, what you got?
Just shouts to Justice League Incarnate for the Gary Frank cover. I mean, it's nothing that special, but it's Gary Frank doing covers. Thought it was worth mentioning. But you already mentioned Wonder Woman, but since I didn't read that one, I'm gonna go with the Human Target as well because it's so good.
If I was to give a shout out to another one, I'd say the variant for Incarnate, which is Jorge Fornes.
The Fornes
Flashpoint
one.
Batman.
Flashpoint Batman with all the streaks of light. Yeah, that one's really nice. What's yours, Connor?
Honestly, it's either Justice League Incarnate variant, Human Target, or the only other one that's not been mentioned yet is Wonder Girl variant, the Jenny Frison.
Frison, yeah. Pete already called me a soft parody once. I didn't need to do it again.
I will say, despite not liking the book and not reading issue 2, I probably will still give the cover to Human Target. I think it's a gorgeous, well-designed cover.
Sure. All right. Art of the week, Connor, you can go first for this one.
Wonder Woman Historia.
Oh, there you go. It's easy, Matt.
Yeah, me and Peter, pretty sure we're gonna line up and call my shot and say it's Human Target.
Yeah, I could try. See if Federici did all of Fear State Omega, he might have taken it. He might have done, but he didn't. So yeah, Human Target wins. There you go. Greg Smallwood takes the crown. All right. So top 5 of the week, Matt. On you go.
Okay, 1 Human Target, 2 Action Comics, 3 Justice League Incarnate, 4 Nightwing Annual, 5 Fear State Omega.
Cool. Connor.
So Wonder Woman Historia, then Nightwing, then Fear State Omega, Action Comics, and then I think Wonder Woman Annual. Sorry, there's so many books now. I have to actually look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Did you say 6 there? Or was that?
No, that was 5.
Oh, that was 5. Okay.
Wonder Woman Historia, Nightwing, Fear State Omega, Action,
Wonder Woman
Annual. That's 5.
Okay. All right.
You still looked confused by that then.
I don't know. It felt, maybe it was just the way you said it, but it felt like you were already on 5 and then you said another one. Anyway, my number 1 is Human Target issue 2. Then Nightwing Annual, 2nd place. 3rd place Action Comics. 4th place Fear State Omega, and then 5th place Wonder Woman Annual. I think it's my pick. So there you go. And there was still some good stuff after that, which is nice. So it means it's a good healthy week. But obviously Wonder Girl and Batman the Detective were at the bottom of the potential list there, which is a shame. Yeah.
Actually, I could down with those as well. The Robin Annual.
Joe, I could be tempted to swap in Incarnate issue in number 5, which I'm not going to, but it's a good sign that it was a decent week. So good stuff. That is that, which means I can tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So coming up next week, we have the start of Williamson's run on Batman with issue 118, so that should be interesting to see. We have Dark Knights of Steel issue 2. We have Batman 89 issue 4. The Swamp Thing issue 10. Superman Son of Kal-El 2021 Annual. Suicide Squad number 10. Green Lantern issue 9. Arkham City The Order of the World issue 3. The Joker Presents the Puzzle Box issue 5. Batman The Adventure Continues season 2 issue 7. That's a really wordy title. Justice League Infinity issue 6. Christian Lobo issue 7. Soul Plumber issue 3. One Star Squadron issue 1. Oh, I forgot about this thing coming out.
Very excited about that one.
World of Krypton issue 1.
Less excited, but curious.
Very curious. This is the Venditti one, yeah. Somewhat curious. And then Mad Magazine as well, just to round out the full list. So not super. I mean, it's obviously I read a lot of books there, but there's actually quite a lot there that either I'm not reading or at least because I doubt I'm going to go back and catch up on Green Lantern. I doubt.
I mean, I have to know what's going on. So
assuming someone reads Green Lantern, I think there's 8 books between all of us. And I don't think anyone's reading all of them.
I'm not making Green Lantern a priority because I kind of want to read the Venditti World of Krypton, but I do have to know what's going on with Green Lantern because I'm invested in the Joe story, not so much the John story.
Sure.
So
Swamp Thing's obviously it's the end of the season.
Yep. Season finale.
Which they've already renumbered, or not renumbered, but they're now saying 10 of 16. So I would say it's end of a season, but in reality it's a couple of months off and then it's back.
It's back in March, I think, right?
Yeah. But with issue 11, so it's
Yeah, but also it's the end of the season, and it was almost certainly written as the end of the season.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I'm basically just thinking that eventually when the deluxe hardcover comes out, it'll just be all 16 issues in one.
Probably 18 issues. I'll probably have the Future State issues in as well, because they did put those in the first trade.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, true. But there you go. That's what's coming next week. That's the list. Which means I can finally say thank you to our Patreon producers. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bornow, Christopher Moy, and David Brown. And of course, you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses. At the $5 tier in particular, you get early access to the show by a day, so that may be of interest. And of course, one of the higher tiers is the producer status, and then a higher above that still is to make me or Connor read a book. So go and have a look and see if you want to support the show. Any tier, all in any, is completely generous and welcome. And of course, you can support us for free by simply hitting the like button, subscribing, dinging the bell on YouTube, or giving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. All those things do help out a bunch. And catch us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast for updates, and you can ask questions on there or whatever. All these things super helpful. So, and share us around with your friends and your comic loving peers. I guess. So there you go. That's basically the show. That's episode 282, and thank you for joining us. And as we said at the start, Connor will probably be around for the next few episodes since he's injured.
Yep.
So Connor gets to stay home but can't play the video game that he wants to play.
Do you know what, it's really hard. I can't even read, I can read comics digitally. I can't really read physical ones because it's really hard to hold the book open and turn the pages without losing it.
You can read them at a desk. You could have it on a table.
Yeah, but I don't like reading them looking down like that. I get a bad neck.
He's going to strain his neck. He's going to have a broken elbow,
Look,
broken
my
wrist.
neck is already fairly strained in that this damn sling is taking the full weight of my arm, like around my neck. So it's like this constantly got something on it already.
You don't like to read at a desk because it strains your neck.
Yeah, because I'm assuming what Pete has laid the book flat down on the desk, and then I look down at it.
Do you not have a? You do music. Do you not have like a music stand for sheet music that you could put in front of you?
No, I needed one. I used to have like a fold-out one somewhere, but I just haven't needed it in ages.
Okay, just a thought. Something that wouldn't be looking down. You'd have it in front of your face, but fair enough.
This guy.
Just a thought.
How is that weird? Looking down constantly would give you a bad neck.
God, I'm sorry, I read my books all the time.
And how often do you complain about a bad back?
I mean, that's different. That's different from going to the gym. It's not from reading comics.
It might not help.
And also being my advanced age. You're still young, dude.
Advanced stage, you're like 35, Matt. Shut up.
That's still, compared to you guys.
I'm 32. What are you talking about? I thought I was younger.
I'm still older.
I love how he's only going to flaunt the age if it helps him win the argument that his life is more tough because he's old and brittle. Oh, I'm
any
so
other
old.
time it's like, I don't know, it's nothing.
But in this argument, it's like, no, I'm so brittle and old. Respect your elders and do nice things for me.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I'm brittle. I'm just saying at my age, I can still look down and read comics. That's all. I have a strong neck, I guess.
I have never. I mean, it's not my number one way to read a comic book, but I have never had an issue just leaning on my arm and looking down if I put a book on a table.
He's gonna have Paige hold it and turn the page for him.
Oh, I don't think she would.
It's in her name. It's in her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here. Pete's gonna eat.
I do have to eat. I'm starving.
I've got to eat as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Is Paige is pissed at him because now she has to do all the cooking and dishes because
she is fuming genuinely. And also, she was like, "Shit, how are you going to cook Christmas dinner?" I'm like, yeah, about that.
It's gonna be like Gordon Ramsay, where you're just yelling at her.
Yes.
No, I'm just forget it. I'm ordering a takeaway. Don't give a shit.
Smart.
I love the idea that
Connor's
going to try and do the thing where he holds up the slices of bread on her face to call her an idiot sandwich, but he can only do it with one. So he's like, "You're an idiot." Like
open face.
Bread in between, like around it.
By the way, I thought that was a real thing, and then I realized it was from like a bit that he did.
From his Hell's Kitchen stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a celebrity that he was doing that too. Never realized that before.
So it was like more. It was more inclined to just do stupid, silly stuff for the humor.
Yeah.
Than normal.
She was going along with it too. I legit thought that was from Kitchen Night or whatever his show, Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
Like,
I think it was a parody version of it, essentially.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, but I thought it was from an actual episode because that's on brand for him. So
I think that says a lot, though. That if you don't know, you just go, sure.
Yeah. And that person probably had it coming.
Next, you'll be telling me that clip of Ancient Aliens where the guy goes, "Aliens" is like a parody version of the real show, which isn't. But
I mean, that show is a parody of history.
Was it a parody though, or was it just unaware of what it was?
Yeah. Well, I could make the argument that's why we're in a lot of the spots we are now because of
Right,
stuff
but
like that.
parody is intentional.
That guy should team up with Tommy Wiseau. Get Tommy Wiseau to make a documentary about about
Let
history.
me just tell you, one of the science teachers I used to work with, big fan of that guy from Ancient Aliens, and it makes me worried for what type of science they were teaching in that class.
Oh, Matt, I watched Santa's Sleigh this week starring Bill Goldberg. That was an experience.
Oh no. I'm sorry.
It had a lot of people. James Caan was at it. What you call it? Amelia DeClark from Lost was at it.
Yeah, but you led with Goldberg, and that's why I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, well I mean it's just Goldberg. He's Goldberg Santa.
Yeah, the only time I've gotten excited to see him was when he was on The Goldbergs as the PE teacher, because that was just
talk about stunt casting. We're gonna get Goldberg to be on the Goldbergs.
Yes, it worked. So, all right, cool. Let's get out of here, guys.
So, guys, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you enjoyed this fairly supersized episode. We'll see you next time. So keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Yeah, part 3, The Curse of Connor.
Darkseid is addicted to crack.